I love it. It's a great time. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, now we're live streaming. You can tell Amanda how lost we were without her.
Hey, Carolyn, we don't have hot mics. Where's Amanda when we need her?
Suddenly we're in Goshen.
That should just be a power button.
Why don't you just make a motion to defer until Amanda can come do this one?
I'd have been saying that all day.
Suddenly we're in Goshen.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Are we having fun yet?
All right, we still got some people coming in, but let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, it's July 12, 2022. This is the Ocean Springs Planning Commission meeting. Note that all members minus Alan are present. If everybody would please stand, and I'll lead us in a quick prayer and ask Matthew to lead us in a quick pledge of allegiance. God, we thank you so much for this year you've given us, God. Thank you so much for the city that you've given us to live in. Help us to be good to her and her good to us. Help us to make good, smart decisions here that promote the city of Ocean Springs into the future. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Keep moving on us. Yeah. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's dive into the agenda. First, I'll ask anybody that has cell phones, which is probably everybody, to silence them. Silence watches. Let's try to keep beeping noises to a minimum where possible. First item of business is going to be item 2A. Is going to be approval of minutes from the June 14th meeting. Everybody reviewed. Any comments?
Just ignore us. We're supposed to.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion to approve by Kevin, second by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Minutes are good. No old business, so we're going to move on to item 4A. We're gonna go slow while Wade meanders about and gets ready for his part. Okay.
The nameplates are in here, but you don't get them because I can't find them. So.
Okay.
Are they? Okay.
All right. So item 4A is going to be 300 Ward Avenue. It's parcel ID 610-110-810000. Craig Smith is requesting the use of gravel or similar material to construct a driveway on a residential lot. Wade, you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Okay, give me just a moment to get this thing pulled up here.
I could just change all your names and. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay, there's the property on the screen. One more moment.
Our normal person isn't here today, so we're just figuring it out as we go.
You're a boss.
Okay, now we've got the recorder on. All right, now I think we're ready to go. Thank you. As you said, this is a request for a gravel drive. The property there is at the northeast corner of Kensington and Ward. It is a single-family zoned area. The house is a recent construction, and as you may be familiar with, the UDC allows gravel driveways on residential property, but it does call for Planning Commission approval of those. In this situation, see that the proposal is for gravel parking pad in the front, and also gravel driveway leading to Kensington Avenue shown on the lower part of the screen. And those of you that are familiar with Ward, a gravel driveway on this property would be consistent with that existing character. There are already 7 dwellings on Ward with gravel driveways, and 3 on Kensington. So it is consistent with the character of the neighborhood. I do want to point out that requirement of the UDC is that there be a 10-foot hard surface between the actual gravel and the actual pavement of the street to keep the gravel contained within the driveway and not spread onto the street and into the drainage system. In this case, the gravel has already been installed, and they do not have that hard surface installed on them. Reached out to the contractor, not heard back from him as of today, as this evening rather, on whether or not that is they can provide that, but that would be something that would have to be decided by the Board of Aldermen. That is, the UEC does require that 10-foot area. So with that provision, staff is recommending approval of gravel in this specific situation.
Anybody have any questions for Wade? All right, we tend to like to give everybody a chance to speak. If you are here to talk about, starting with Craig, if you want to say anything to this, you don't have to, of course, but do you have anything to add? Where did Craig go? Oh, he's hiding it.
You want to leave me by myself? Kind of to start out here, we've got
I'm sorry, name and address first.
Shane Loper, 300 Ward. We've got 3 letters from our immediate neighbors, kind of saying as built, as constructed. They don't disagree with the driveway. And I'd also.
Are those ones that we've received already, or?
I don't know, Carolyn, you can.
Normally I'd say give them to Amanda,
Yeah.
but.
Carolyn, you want to kind of just confirm it's 3 letters, 3 new neighbors, 3 new letters, everything looks
Confirm.
good, all of them are in favor, okay? Does anybody want to make a motion to accept those in the minutes? Got a motion by Matthew, second by Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, so those are going to be in the minutes now, that's all we just did.
Good, okay. What I'd like to do is run through some data here with you, just to give you some context on kind of what we've done.
Okay. We do ask you to try to keep everything in about 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll just gonna get it in the record here.
And similarly, does anybody want to make a motion to accept this into the minutes? So moved. We got a motion by Marshall, second by?
Second.
Heard Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed.
All right, so very quickly, the UDC is 372 pages, so when we decided to do this, in Chapter 474, subparagraph C, we didn't really understand that we needed 10 foot, but we do now. So if you go to page 2, our goals for the driveway and the parking area provide for rainwater management. We don't have any drains on Ward or Kensington Avenue on our property. Complement the surrounding neighborhood, downtown driveways and parking. Provide safe parking for our family and friends, even though Kensington is a 25-mile-per-hour street. Regularly, we have cars traveling probably upwards of 50 miles an hour down that street, so we pass that on to the police department. And then also using green materials versus concrete. We felt like that was the right answer in that neighborhood. So on page 3, this is just something out of the code, and I won't bore you with going through it all, but it's vehicular circulation and streetscape design. That last sentence, it says where possible, the use of paved surfaces should be minimized as new streets are developed in order to minimize flooding. There's a point to the flooding. So on page 4, these are some pictures of rainwater management, concrete versus permeable surface, and one of the letters of concurrence is our neighbor across the street that's pictured in the center in the last picture. As you can see on that left picture, around here, we don't mill streets when we pave them. We just pave over the top of the existing pavement, so you just kind of keep stacking pavement on top of it. This is SHD's driveway on Kensington. You can see there's multiple layers of asphalt up against the concrete. And then if you look at Lim and Ashley Stovall's house, which is the blue house in the next picture, that multiple layer of asphalt is now trapping water against that concrete driveway. Ours is the last driveway, and you can see that there's water on the road there And also, our lot, the street is above grade on our lot. We had to add, I don't know how many cubic yards of dirt to try to get it up to grade, but the street, because of the stacking, is above grade of our property. Page 5, you can see in the first picture the yellow circle. That's after that rain in the previous picture. You can see a comparison of our driveway and Lynn and Ashley's driveway. Our driveway is almost dry after the rain. Theirs still has water in the driveway, and then you can see they constantly are dealing with rutting and mud in their driveway. So imagine having to get out of your car after a rain and wade through 2 to 3 inches of water to your front porch. Page 6, 462 is residential street standards. Ward Avenue fits the historic street type, designed to replicate the environment of traditional Ocean Springs neighborhood. There's a picture there looking south of Ward Avenue. It's a great street. We love being new residents there. The next page is page 7. This is the code section 474, off-street parking surfacing requirements. Sub A, I'll just point this out, so I'm going to make another point here. Property shall be properly drained to prevent ponding. So if you have concrete with the way that the street's constructed, with the stacking of the asphalt, there's no way for us to prevent ponding without drainage on our property, which we have none of.
Hey, look, I'm going to remind, we got to keep it under 3 minutes.
Okay.
We've got a lot of items
All
up
right.
here and a lot of people. You can kind of get to maybe the last couple pages where you have the request.
Will do. So if you go to page 8, you'll see these are driveways without the 10-foot apron, Little Children's Park, all driveways on Ward Avenue, the Happy Place downtown on page 9. That I believe that's a new rear parking lot after the code was passed. There's another drive on Ward Avenue, and you can see that the as the code calls for the gravel being deposited on the road, one also on East Beach. So here's our request. You guys can't approve this, but I'm going to go ahead and get all of this in the record as I understand from an email this afternoon. So what we would like to do is ask you to allow the Ward Avenue parking pad, which is 19 feet at the maximum radius, to stand as constructed. Provides for rainwater management, given we have no street drains. Rocks are contained, they're not above street grade and not depositing on the road right of way, as you saw in some of the previous pictures. Fits with Ward Avenue historic street and neighborhood character. Future street paving will also put the rocks below street grade, so there's no way for those rocks to be able to make it onto the street even into the future. And you can see there's 2 pictures of the design. The next page, and this is the variance that we would like to have on the drives, is grant a variance of a 3-foot containment barrier adjoining the Kensington Avenue driveway and parking of brick, stone, whole paver, or concrete. And I gave you a representation there of the 3 foot of the driveways, and 308 Dewey has the exact same configuration. Again, good containment to avoid material deposit on the right of way, continued rainwater management given the road grades are above the lot grade due to the stacking of the asphalt, and no drains. Allows for future road paving to not be a big water management issue when the road grade continues to go above the lot grade. And it's consistent with other drives in downtown. So thank you for hearing me and entertaining me.
Thank you, Mr. Lockwood. All right, anybody else in the audience want to speak regarding this application for use of gravel to construct a driveway at 300 Ward Avenue? Anybody else once, twice? All right, do I have any comments from commissioners? Any thoughts? Anything you see in there that sparked any?
Yeah, just one quick comment, page 12, the Kensington Avenue picture, those yellow blocks, I can't even see what's underneath there.
Well, he's proposing to make them, right now it's.
That's just the end of the
Yeah,
driveway.
but in the 308 Dewey Avenue, they do have the whole pavers, it looks like they do meet the full 10 feet. You can
No,
see the
that's
whole
only
paver on
about,
the side.
that's only about 3
That's
feet.
not old pavers, that's actually, so the Dewey
Yeah,
Avenue
yeah,
actually used a engineered
Engineered. That's it.
geogrid that actually contains a ROTS 4. I'll say my comments, and you already kind of said it for me, is we can't just willy-nilly give 7 feet variances, so we either have to approve with the 10 and then make the case to the argument, or I'm sorry, the alderman, you make the case to the alderman in advance of, and they have a little more leeway, but that's kind of my thoughts. I don't think we can just say 3 feet's fine here when the ordinance says we can prove it up with the 10 foot. Anybody else? Anybody want to take a stab at a motion?
I'll get it over.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the request for a gravel driveway and parking pad at 300 Ward Avenue, provided that a 10-foot wide hard surface is provided behind the street asphalt.
Okay, a motion by Kevin,
Second.
second by Mike, all in favor.
Aye.
All right, so Mr. Lopper, this will go on to next week's board agenda, correct? Next
Correct.
week's board agenda, if you want to do something different than that, maybe reach out to your alderman and support too, right?
Yeah, and actually, if you just submit the email officially that you want to appeal the 10-foot and offer whatever, then it'll be under new business instead of under consent.
But just one last little record keeping, this and the 3 letters will be in the minutes, which will go to the aldermen, so they'll already have a copy of this.
Correct.
Not to say you don't want to bring it with you just in case, but it'll be in the record, so. All right, did we finish that one up? How about that? We got one down, guys. Bear with me. All right, item B, 1808 Bienville Boulevard, parcel ID 601-202-80.000, James McClendon requesting use of gravel or similar material to construct a parking lot on a commercial lot. Wade?
Okay. She said this is on CH Regional Commercial.
Hey, wait, I'm sorry. I did want to tell everybody, item D, if you were here just for the rezoning from CH to R1A on government, that got deferred. So we're looking at the lot split, but if you were only here about the rezoning from CH to R1A for the 3074 Government Street, then that is not going to be heard today. So y'all are welcome to head out if that's the only one you wanted to hear.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Is that
somebody else.
Broom's land?
What's that?
Yes.
Is that the Kermis Broom land?
Yes.
They're not gonna hear that today?
We're gonna hear splitting the lot, but we're not gonna hear rezoning.
When will they be doing the rezoning? We live right on that
we
Kermis
can't-
Broom road.
Right now, it's anticipated that it's been deferred to next month, so it's in August, the second Tuesday next month.
Okay.
So they just asked to push it to the next meeting.
All right, sorry guys. Go ahead, Wade. Sorry to interrupt you. I just meant to say
I'm
that.
glad you mentioned that. Thank you. In this case, this property, as you can see, it fronts on the Bienville Boulevard frontage road. And as again, this is a request, like the previous one, for a gravel driveway. Again, there is a requirement for the 10 feet of hard surface between it and the actual pavement. In this situation, staff is recommending against approval of this one in this situation, because it is zone commercial, has a condition for commercial development on it. And in the past, the Planning Commission has recommended against gravel parking areas along arterial streets like Bienville. You did have one before you back in the October 2019 meeting where the Planning Commission recommended denial for gravel parking area. The Board of Aldermen denied the request also. So there is a precedent for not allowing gravel drives on commercial property on Bienville or its fringe roads. So that's concludes the staff report. As I said, we are recommending denial of this request. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody got anything for Wade based on that? Did the applicant want to speak?
Yes.
Where you at? There you go. Name and address at the microphone, please.
Hi, my name is James McClendon. Address is 1808 Bienville Boulevard. And when I first submitted the application, they said that gravel was fine. And now later on, they said, well, I guess the UDC code or whatever. So, and then my engineer, I had to get an engineer, and told him that, I guess with impervious
Impervious?
percentage, That's why I prefer the gravel. I was gonna do a slab, but with all of that, I don't think I would require, I guess, what, 15%? Stuff like that, if I put a slab, and it was like,
I don't remember off the top of my
okay.
head.
So the engineer, I worked with our Overstreet engineers, it was fine, so. So I'm not sure why they disapprove it. One time they said they welcome it, so, I don't know.
Was he dealing with Jason was Jason serving as a city engineer? Did you hire him directly?
Yes, I did.
His private engineer, his engineer.
And he would have been speaking on the drainage,
Right.
not necessarily the requirement of the UDs.
Okay. All right, anything else?
That's it.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Is there anybody else in the audience that wants to speak about use of gravel as surfacing for a parking lot at, what was the address? 1808 Bienville. Anybody else? All right, what about you, commissioners? Anybody got any thoughts, questions, concerns?
Wait, did you say that you could actually have the gravel as long as you have the paper?
Well, that decision is up to y'all as a planning commission, but at the minimum, a 10-foot apron is required. If y'all and the board decide that gravel is appropriate in this location, that's your purview. But we would require under the UDC that there's a 10-foot hard surface between the pavement and between the street pavement and their gravel.
So Mike, you probably weren't here for the Cheney one, but we did a pretty good little vetting at the time as far as where gravel is and isn't on 90. There's not a lot of it. There were some, if I remember correctly, that were in the back.
There's
Some
one
of
on
that
the
in-
north side that's in the back, and that had to do with drainage, and it was kind of overflow parking in it.
Right.
Some of the older developments, older commercial buildings have gravel in the back.
Right.
I think particularly in this area
I can't
also.
remember if we found any that had it up front, up to 90 or Service Road, right? I don't think
No.
we did.
No commercial
We did
ones.
end up denying it based on just nobody else having it on 90 and not really being the highway commercial feel to have gravel parking along it.
Understand.
All right, anybody else? Questions or comments? If not, anybody want to take a motion?
I'll go ahead and take the motion to deny the request for a gravel driveway at 1808 Bienville Boulevard.
Okay. Second. All right, we have a motion by Mike, second by Kevin, all in favor? Aye. All opposed. All right, so that will go to the next board meeting. They'll have the final say. If you want to reach out to them and appeal the decision, you're within your rights. Just reach out to the planning department. They'll help you out there. All right, moving on down, item 4C, this is going to be 3074 Government Street, parcel ID is 601-280-41000, Brantley Broom requesting a lot split. For those of you keeping score at home, this is the same property as I said was being deferred. This is just to split the lot into two. The other one was going to actually rezone it, but the zoning would stay the same regardless if this gets approved tonight or not. Is this another way to assume?
Correct. So this is the property on the screen as it exists right now. This is the Broom's convenience store, gas station, and also undeveloped lot. Just extends down to Kermit's Broom Drive. That leads to Forest Noble from Government Street. This was filed in conjunction with the rezoning of the southern parcel to multifamily zoning district, the R1A district. That's not being heard tonight, but the intent was to permit the development of some apartments on the undeveloped part of the property. The lot reconfiguration, as you see it, the lots would be developable, but one would contain the existing convenience store and the pump islands. The other one would be undeveloped area, about 2 point some odd acres. I've gotten just recently revised a sketch from the applicant's consultant on this, revising it to address one of the concerns that we had regarding setbacks from the building. It appears that what it does, it shifts the lot line from between the metal building and the one-story block building to the west side of the metal building with a 5-foot setback. That would, at least on this, appears to resolve the potential issue of a non-conforming setback on
Push
that.
pause on you just for 2 seconds?
Yes.
All right, so everybody got this? Does anybody want to take a motion to accept these into the minutes?
So moved.
All right, motion Matthew, second.
Mike?
Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, Wade.
Okay. Is there any other comments on this?
Yeah, I got you off your train of thought. You were talking about.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I'm just looking to see if they had anything else I need to add to it. We were recommending that it be approved with condition that it be, the setback distance is provided. This revised plan does address that issue. Would want to point out, if we've been looking at the zoning map up there, that the new Lot 2 would be, continue to be split by that existing zoning district. So this is a, but provide for possibly some confusion of a split district at some point in the future. That may be possible to be addressed if the rezoning of this property moves forward.
Go down to
But-
the split up there. If you could scroll down to the,
There you go.
for
Okay.
comparison.
There's the application as submitted, and it said the new line would be just to the west of that metal building. So it still complies with the basic requirements. So we can recommend approval of this as revised.
Yeah. Anybody got any questions for Wade?
So just to confirm, Wade, if we split this into 2 lots, both lots are gonna be zoned to what initially?
The lot with the convenience store would be
CH.
CH and some R2 residential. The proposed Lot 2, parcel B, I think it's called, F, would be dual zoned also with CH frontage and then R2 single family to the rear.
So they'll both be considered CHR2.
Correct.
We're gonna get rid of dual zones. We're just not doing that. I did want to ask, it looks like that clean out, I did see you addressed it in the memo, but a private easement would be acceptable by the city if, I'm assuming that's just their service line.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
And since it's going across a newly created lot rather than their own property, just needs to have just easement for keep things clean.
Right, sure. Okay. Anybody else got any questions or comments before we move to the audience? Once twice sold. Does the applicant want to speak? See you? Oh, yeah, I knew that.
Not gonna miss an opportunity to talk to you guys.
I didn't get a 20-page report, so I forgot you were here.
That was kind of short notice, but I do apologize.
Remind me about the 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, name and address, Donovan.
My name is Donovan Scruss, 317 Pine Drive. Brantley contacted me a couple weeks ago and asked me to assist with these applications. Wade, if you don't mind, would you go back to the your slide on that showing the zoning? Regardless of what happens here tonight or what would have happened if we was asked for it and got the rezoning, you're going to have some dual zonings on that property. The R2 actually runs through the convenience store as it sits right now. So there's a lot of cleanup that has to occur with the zoning of this property. And by doing the lot split tonight, it more or less establishes what those boundaries are. And then we can come forward with a request to rezone both the property, including the convenience store, to get that all CH, because I think that's necessary, but also to clean up the zoning on the new property. Believe it or not, there's been some pushback on the proposed R1A zoning that we asked for, and we are working through that to determine what the best avenue is. There's been talks of moratoriums and other things associated with the multifamily district. So we really want to meet with some individuals, have some discussions, and see what the best route to go forward is. I do know that the R2 is not an appropriate zoning district for the property, because when you look around the neighborhood, a lot of those homes are on lots that are less than the R2. So this is in a sense zoned higher than what some of the surrounding properties are. So all we're asking for tonight is just a simple lot split. If we come forward with the rezoning, whether it be R1A or a commercial district, or RMX1 or whatever those districts are we have nowadays, re-notification will be required. But tonight, all we want is the rezoning. I provided copies of the proposed move, which I hope is adequate, clears that up. I did have conversation with the city today regarding wastewater and water, and both of them seem as though it's achievable. The manhole back on the west side of the property on Morris Noble is shallow, is high, but I think we can access it. But that is something that somebody a lot smarter than me is going to figure out.
Okay. So just to confirm, I mean, y'all still want to move forward with the lot split even with the deferral of the...
That's correct. This property is high and dry by Ocean Springs terms. There are no wetlands. It needs to be developed. We're not sure how it will be developed, but it will not be developed as a expansion of the grocery of the convenience store. And even if that convenience store is expanded, it would require rezoning too. So I mean, we've got to do something. And the first step is getting the lots in order.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Donovan? Any other thoughts, questions, comments? Okay. Good.
Thank you, guys.
Anybody else in the audience want to speak about just the lot split on the government property, the Rooms 2 property? Once, twice sold. Comments up top. Anybody up here got anything they want on the record?
These get put into the record? Yes, sir.
Yeah, we did. I rudely interrupted Wade to do so. Okay. Really threw him off his train of thought too.
That doesn't take much.
I understand that. My thing would be is just, I think we should still have a caveat if the motion is to approve, maybe refer to these, but still put the onus on them to actually fix the survey and get it to the planning department to confirm it meets it, but I don't see any reason to have it come back to us for it. But that's just my thoughts. Anybody want to take a stab at a motion?
Make a motion to recommend approval of the lot split of 3407 Government Street as described in the application and survey as amended by the revised lot split proposal entered into the minutes of this meeting, and that those be filed with the city.
Okay. A motion. Do I have a second? I got a second by Marshall. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. So that'll carry. Donovan, if you can have the surveyor just do something a little better than the hand sketch and get it to them.
Like that?
I think it's great. I'd say take it to the county and file it, as far as I know. All right, let's keep going. So item 4D was deferred. Again, that was going to be the public hearing to look at the rezoning of that property, but we will hear that most likely at the next meeting. So let's jump down to 4E. That's going to be the first public hearing. Public hearings are going to be very similar, but we're going to make it more official. We'll have motions to go into public hearings and have a little more formal process for the audience. I think it'll make better sense if we just jump into one. So let's jump in, shall we? 4E, public hearing, 320 Jackson Avenue, parcel ID is 601-374-16000. Jake Travis for the First Presbyterian Church of Ocean Springs is requesting a conditional use permit to allow a church to use a residence as office space. Is anybody have a motion to go into public hearing? We got a motion by Matthew, second by Marshall. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are in a public hearing. We're going to get a staff report first from, I would guess, Wade.
Is what? Correct. The property is on the screen. As you see, it is in the R1 single-family zoning district. Also, to point out, it is in the Old Ocean Springs Historic District. Totally surrounded by also single-family residential zoning. Just to the north of this, across Ocean Avenue, is the Ocean Springs Presbyterian Church, which is the applicant in this case also, where their proposal is to use this as a conditional use permit for a church-related, for offices, for office space for, as they say, ministerial staff of the church itself. Also, the church has agreed to allow its parking lot on the north side to be used for parking for this building. That this is appropriate in that the parking requirement for offices is greater than it is for a single-family dwelling, based on the size of the building rather than simply the number of 2 spaces per dwelling unit. So from that standpoint, there would not be the necessity of additional asphalt, hard surface, gravel, whatever, on this site to accommodate the additional parking. Just to refresh your memory about conditional use permits, they do not change the zoning of the property, but they do give you and the board the ability to make a specific site plan, associate the use with a specific site plan for the use with regard to extend the building, parking, landscaping is appropriate, or whatever. Also, the criteria are that that the use can be appropriately accommodated on the property, that will conform to the comprehensive plan, and it will be operated in a manner that's compatible with the surroundings. And the public interest, safety, and welfare is promoted by the conditional use. Also, if you feel appropriate, y'all can, as Planning Commission, can recommend additional standards or conditions for the development. In this case, said the intent is to use the dwelling, the house, building, as is for office use associated with the church. The plan as presented to it does not add any parking area to the property. It keeps the parking as is. So from that standpoint, staff's conclusion is that it would fit into the area and that it is will maintain the residential appearance of the building. As a conditional use, since it's associated with the site plan, which is bring down to that one. And the site plan associated with it. Of course, any change to that site plan for additional building area or parking would require an amendment to the conditional use permit, to the CUP, that would come back to y'all and the board also. Furthermore, it is within the historic district, so any kind of changes to the exterior would have to meet the standards of the Old Ocean Springs Historic District, Historic Preservation Commission, and the Board of Aldermen. So with that, staff is recommending approval, and would remind you that there were, I believe, 2 emails and 2 emails from surrounding property owners with regard to this. That is included in your packet. That's what was presented to you. I think that concludes the presentation on it, and leave it open to questions or a presentation by the church's representative.
Okay, before we go to the audience, did y'all, anybody have anything for Wade?
Wait, I think you mentioned that due north of that is actually the church, but it's actually church
It's
park.
a church parking lot, exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to kind of say that too. So to confirm, this would be, I mean, you have a right of way in between it, but they would own this piece, the piece immediately to the north of that, and then all the way over to, I'm drawing a blank.
Washington.
Washington.
So they would it would be, minus the right of way in between, it would maintain kind of a contiguous campus, if you will. So, yeah.
Yes, and Ocean Avenue is a minor street, so that it only extends between Jackson and Washington.
So my other question for you would be just to confirm that a conditional use permit goes with the owner, not the property, correct?
That can be, well, it can be conditioned that way. I mean, that's not a standard requirement. It would be, in this case, it would be for church-related offices.
Right.
But, I mean, if you want to make a contingent on running with the ownership, that can be done.
I could probably support, we'll hear how it goes, but it's a church office there, but we certainly wouldn't want it to become just a split office, shared office type unit or something like that. So, all right. Anybody else with Wade before we call up for public input? All right. Is the applicant here? Did the applicant want to speak?
Sure.
All right. Name and address at the microphone, please.
Jake Travis, 3602 Perryman Road. Mr. Morgan, thank you for your description. First Pres has experienced quite a bit of growth in the last few years, and which is it's a good thing. And along with that growth, kind of comes a need to house growing staff and their resources. And so we've, about 6 months ago, we put together a team to look at a kind of a comprehensive campus master plan to address some of the needs of this growth, figure out where everything's going to be, figure out what we have, and where these additional uses can go on the campus. This opportunity came up during that process, and it immediately would fulfill the need for the growing admin and their resources, and it would do it in a way that it cuts down on the disruptive nature of construction. Our campus, as it's currently situated, is kind of tight where the buildings are, and we need most of the parking that we have already for the growing parking needs that we have. So 320 Jackson, it fills that need, and like Mr. Morgan said, the character of the building is going to stay the same per the conditional use. And so that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's just seeing the needs of a growing communion, or congregation rather, and the staff being met.
Okay. Are you planning on doing any just administrative stuff in here? Are you planning on having meetings in there? And is it one-on-one meetings or big meetings? Or?
That's a good question. The main purpose is admin. There will be some meetings probably throughout the day. There could even be a couple in the evenings, small groups, meeting probably in the context of administrative for most of the uses. Throughout the day, we could see 6 or 7 people that call that their office home. And then the folks that come to visit them for meetings of various reasons would be kind of the day in, day out, Monday through Friday.
Right, but it wouldn't be like for Sunday school. It wouldn't be for like recurring events or
correct. No, that would be
counseling.
I think the uses that are kind of outside the scope of admin would be kind of spot cases. It would not be an ongoing meeting place for the youth or anything like that.
Okay.
Would there be any need for any additional signage?
We have discussed signage, and I think it's something that we would like to pursue. We don't know what that looks like yet. We're actually going through a kind of a campus-wide signage plan for the whole church. So it would tie into whatever that is. Would that be an additional, would that be an amendment, Mr. Morgan, to
That
CUP?
actually would go to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay.
They do have a sign committee. It would have to go through them.
Okay.
And we just point out that there are, in the UDC, there's a section on signs associated with churches.
Okay.
So they are
That's really
kind of restrictive.
Okay. The sign and an accessible ramp to the front porch would be the only additions to what's currently there.
That would also be an HPC, Historic Preservation Commission matter too. They would have to look at that.
Wait, I wouldn't see the sign or that ramp mattering to us from a conditional use permit. Right?
Those big HPC issues.
Right. Okay. All
I
right.
mean, that'd be more of an accessory. That's not something that would be significant to
I
the site
guess
plan.
if you wanted to do a out of compliance sign, it would probably end up messing with the CUP and have to come to us. So
Yeah.
I would think as long as it
But
meets the code.
but it does have to go through another body, so there is oversight on
Right.
the signage.
Yep. All right, is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak in favor of? And before we get going, let me just say the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items are public hearing. Kind of said it earlier, but we ask everybody to hold their comments to about 3 minutes. If somebody else already says something you agree with, you can say, I agree, and it'll kind of go on the minutes. It'll show multiple people have the same type of oppositions, and in that way, if you agree with something they say, you can add something to it and have more time to do so. So, again, this is for the conditional use permit to allow the church to use the residence as office space. Does anybody want to speak in favor of? Yep. All right, we're in favor. Name and address at the microphone. You can just say we're in favor and sit back down, but we got to have your name and address.
305 Jackson Avenue.
What was your name?
Roland and Patricia Creel.
All right, Roland and Patricia Creel, and you say in favor of. All right, anybody else want to speak in favor of?
Yep.
All right, name and address at the microphone.
Greg Warch, 219 Washington Avenue. I'm the immediate neighbor to the east on the Minor Street of Ocean. So I've been across the street from the church office. So we live across the street from the church office as it's currently situated for almost 20 years now. I actually work out of my house, so I see the comings and goings, and I can tell you it's not disruptive. There's There are cars that occasionally are in the parking lot, but there's not noise, there's not a lot of activity in the parking lot or outside the building that's associated with the church office. So I mean, we would be very much in favor of this move.
So to confirm, that black building right there, you're right to the right of it.
No, he's
Nope,
on the
I'm
other.
down Ocean at Washington, other corner of Ocean.
Oh, the other corner, okay, I got you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I think that's east, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, anybody, yeah, thank you. Anybody else in favor of, speaking in favor of? Once, twice sold. Anybody in opposition to the CUP for the church to have the office space? Anybody in opposition? Name and address at the microphone, please.
Carrie Cambry, 403 Jackson Avenue. Carrie Cambry. My husband and I are here today to oppose. We bought property on Jackson Avenue because it's the oldest street in Ocean Springs with beautiful houses. They're old and historic with oak trees. And we kind of felt like it would stay that way. And we're a little concerned about the unknowns of commercial property being right there across the street from us. We don't know if later it can be sold as commercial. We don't know. There's a house directly to the right. It was built in like 1901. Can somebody buy it, it's for sale, and say, hey, can we zone it commercial too? You know, we rely on having neighbors and our families, and it's a little scary. I hate to be an ass and say, oh, I don't want the church. That's not what I'm saying. It's just a little scary, and you don't know, is it going to be a commercial building for somebody else later down the road? If they want office space, can they just go find office space? Why does it have to be that space and no other space? There's lots of office space downtown. This house is for sale for almost $1 million. You have to go into $1 million home and make it office space. These are beautiful, beautiful homes. So I just worry about where do we stop making it commercial property? So it makes me nervous, and I just feel like if you have that kind of money to spend, there's a lot of office space downtown that you could go use. So, thank you. Thank you.
All right, anybody else against? Anybody else against? All right, one more time. Anybody want to speak about the conditional use permit for the church? Once, twice, sold. All right, do I have a motion to? That's right. That's what I was about to ask. So I got a marshaled motion to close public hearing. Anybody else?
Second.
Second by Kevin. All in favor? Aye. All opposed. All right, we're out of public hearing. Do you have any comments from the commissioners?
Just want to clarify that we are not talking about rezoning this commercial. We are talking about a limited commercial use permit that will last for the ownership period of this property.
If we put that.
If we put that application, if that application goes on it. And then when this property is sold again, that conditional use permit goes away.
That's correct.
Put that condition.
Yeah,
So
they're
we are not
generally,
rezoning.
they're generally
Yeah, this
non-transferable.
is not a rezone or anything. This is
Not
just
a rezone.
conditional
Yeah.
use.
It's
Hey,
What's that?
hey,
It can be transferable, but we have the power to say conditional use.
Non-
for
well, you would have to come back to y'all as an amendment.
Yep. A couple of anybody else have any comments?
I do have a quick question. Is First Pres buying this property?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. Anybody else? So, kind of in thinking about how we can impose, so we thought about, having this run with First Presbyterian so it doesn't become a wide open commercial, office space in perpetuity. We talked about parking. I think we should probably consider not allowing any parishioner parking on site, maybe just a couple of cars for the admin folks. And then we also talked about trying to limit use of it to not be a place of gathering, I guess would probably be a good word for that, and just making sure it's more of an administrative office use type. So those are some ideas for whomever wants to take a stab at a motion. And of course, there's any others that anybody else comes up with. Is there any other thoughts on what kind of conditions we would want to have on this before we call for a motion?
I think the thing you pointed out is going to make sure that it only goes with the current ownership.
Yeah.
So it does not transfer with sale of the property.
Okay. All right, anybody want to take a stab at a motion?
I'll try. Recommend approval of a conditional use permit for the use of 320 Jackson Avenue for religious institutional use for ministerial offices as described in the application and the such site plan. This use permit does not transfer with sale of the property.
All right, Marshall has a motion that was limited to just them. He did not say anything about parking or limiting use of it, so if y'all want to ask him to add it, you can, or y'all can second it as presented. Anybody want a second?
Marshall, can you add for administrative purposes only?
And in addition to the motion, the use of this property is for administrative purposes only.
Okay, so now we have a revised motion to include no transfer on sale and limiting the use to be more of an admin type use. Anybody have a second on that motion?
If you could clarify on the ownership, because currently they haven't purchased it yet. So to clarify that if the applicant, which is
Well, and I
the
kind of
church.
was thinking, Marshall, the way it's worded for religious institutional use of ministerial, easy for me to say, I'm gonna skip that word. Ministerial offices kind of limits it to a church use, but
Right.
I mean, I don't suppose.
But just
there's
to
a
clarify
harm-
that it's the applicant that you're limiting it to, since they haven't purchased it yet.
I don't suppose there's a harm.
Not instead of saying the current owner.
There's no harm in using their name, I mean, same. for
Right,
Baptist
right.
Church, or, I'm sorry, First Presbyterian Church.
Yeah, rather than current owner, since it hasn't changed ownership yet.
Yeah. So would you want to clarify, just to make sure that it's not the current owner, but just the applicant?
Okay, let me, I withdraw my motion.
You did say you would try.
Okay.
So,
I recommend approval of the conditional use permit for the use of 320 Jackson Avenue for religious institution use by First Presbyterian Church for ministerial offices as described in the application and the associated site plan, and to be used for administrative purposes only. This conditional use permit will not transfer should the First Presbyterian Church sell the property or not acquire it.
like it. Good second. All right, I got a motion and a second by Kevin, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It's quite the motion. So this being a public hearing is gonna have to be re-advertised, so it will be on the first meeting in August. Correct?
Sounds right, yes.
So the first Tuesday in August is when the board will hear it. The board will have the final say-so at that time.
Okay.
Okay. All right, moving on to item 4F, also a public hearing. This one's going to be for 2302 Bienville Boulevard. These are parcel IDs, 601-203-9000, 601-203-90050, and 601-295-70.200. This is Bryant Harvey requesting a conditional use permit to allow the construction of apartments within the CH Regional Commercial District. Do I have a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Matthew, second I heard Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, public hearing waived.
Yes, okay. Again, this is a conditional use permit, similar to the one previously, although this is a different context completely. This property is on CH Highway Commercial. See, as you can see on the screen, it is totally surrounded by CH zoning, including shopping center to the west, miscellaneous fast food and other small parcels to the north along Bienville Boulevard, and small mini storage, and then an office subdivision to the east of it. Oh, the railroad tracks bordered on the south. The specific proposal with this one is for a conditional use permit for a 270 unit apartment complex. Would have two entrances onto Bienville Boulevard, would provide access to it. and site plan is layout there with, in this case, BMO Boulevard is on the right side of your screen to give you some perspective on it, with the railroad then along the left side. In this situation, as I said, it's a conditional use permit, which the CH district does allow apartments as a conditional use, provided that associated with the site plan, and also gives you as the planning commission and the board of aldermen the ability to impose additional conditions with regard to site development, utilities, green space, so forth. In the specific case, the criteria that y'all need to look at is that, like the one before, is that the use can be appropriately accommodated on this property, that it conforms to the comprehensive plan, and that it's compatible with the surrounding uses, and public health and safety are promoted by it. So that is the applicant's responsibility to demonstrate to you how this development, how this use will meet those criteria. In the report, we do mention a couple of policies that the comprehensive plan contains addressing multifamily development as both a mixed use along the BMO Boulevard corridor that provides to multimodal and pedestrian-oriented design policies, and also to allow housing development near employment centers. We point out that this is a density of about 22, almost 23 dwelling units per acre within what's allowed by the CH district, but it is greater, for comparison purposes, is greater than the RM2 multifamily district, which is the more common apartment zoning district in Ocean Springs. Also, if this is approved, it still has to go through the design review process, which would involve looking at the utilities, infrastructure, stormwater drainage control, and other amenities and open space of this site. Do want to point out that we are not making a recommendation in this case. It is the applicant's responsibility to show to y'all that it is meets the criteria. Also want to point out that the city has looked at and discussed at one of the previous Board of Alderman meetings a moratorium on apartment development, at least apartment development plans, and understand that will be coming up for discussion again at the next Board of Alderman meeting. I just want to get that out and make sure that that's you're aware of that situation. I think that really concludes what I wanted to point out about this property, and we do have the applicant is here. You have to ask him questions or ask me any questions you might have, or the attorney with regard to this. Thank you.
Anybody got anything for Wade?
Yeah, I got a question, Wade.
Okay.
You had mentioned that there's a moratorium that has been presented to the Board of Aldermen. What were the concerns for that moratorium?
The concerns that were expressed before were the impact on, particularly on drainage and other, and also sanitary sewer issues. There are some of the other apartment complexes that have been built, are in development, have issues and questions about the capacity of the sanitary sewer system and drainage system to accommodate that amount of development. Also, I think some questions have been raised about impact on schools. How will the potential for a new multifamily development impact the Ocean Springs School District? Those are some of the things that have been discussed at the previous discussion on moratoriums.
I'm kind of linking that two-way to you're kind of considering it based on the number of apartment units that are currently under construction, correct?
Right. Right now we have about 300 that are under construction. About 100 are about to come on. Just recently have come come online. There's also another couple of hundred apartment complex, couple of hundred unit apartment complex that is just started the design review process. So there are a large number that are in the works.
And those are
potential.
in the correct zoning.
Those are, yes, those are all under their RM2 zoning district.
Somebody else got anything for Wade before we go public? I do, Wade. Did Public Works have a chance to comment on this that you know of?
I could not find comments on them. This is just a preliminary sketch plan, so no, they have not, did not provide comments on this development. They would, when it goes through design review, they would have to do that at that time. If you feel that that's an issue that needs to be addressed.
They would need some more information provided to them for review.
All right, anybody else got questions? We can hash some of this out as we go. On this slide sold. All right, is the applicant here? You want to speak at the microphone, name and address?
Glasses on here. Hello, my name is Brian Harvey. I live at 528 Jackson Avenue. Of course, the property's at 2302 Bienville Boulevard.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Is there any way to try to fix that microphone? Has anybody got any ideas?
There's a volume, I think, on the podium maybe that needs to be
Scared. That's all Amanda's going to hear when she tries to do the minutes.
all the things that we.
It's her fault for not being here.
That's right. She should have been here. Sorry.
Yeah, I think
Let
just
the
kind
record
of
show.
stand, because something's too close to it if we hear you
Is that
fine.
better?
I think so. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, sure, no problem. So, I'll try to keep it brief and then, open it up for any questions y'all might have. But, the property location, in our opinion, is in a beautiful location right in the heart of Ocean Springs. I think it's perfect for this type of development. There's zero wetlands. We've, it's right in the middle of in town, so, near shopping, schools, employment, entertainment. This property, there's different levels of apartments, and this is, we're planning on making it very nice. It'll be an A rating. Of course, the exact facade hasn't been determined yet. We're working with Coward Architecture right over here on Quarter. But it's going to have, beautiful landscaping, a nice perimeter fence for sound barrier, amenities like gym, walking track, picnic area, very nice green space. So it'll be something that we definitely can be proud of here in Ocean Springs. I have spoke to the folks down at the water department, met with a gentleman out there on site, and of course it's all very preliminary, but there's 8-inch sewer lines there that should be more than adequate to accommodate this. And he did speak to a gentleman at the Jackson County Authority, Jared Martin, and of course this is all just preliminary, and said that there shouldn't be any kind of problems with capacity as far as sewer is concerned with the property. As far as stormwater retention, we're planning on retaining them on site with underground, large underground pipes according to my engineer. That should more than be adequate to retain it without a retention pond or anything. But along the west side of the property, there's a giant culvert that runs the length of the property that runs under Highway 90 directly out to the bayou. So there should be more than adequate, storm drain runoff for that property, so we don't see any kind of issues there. Let's see, preliminary conversation, let's see. Traffic proposed, we have 2 entrances proposed for the site. According to the engineer, should be more than adequate and not causing kind of traffic issues entering right there on Bienville Boulevard, Highway 90. Since apartments are attractive to single people, couples without children, and empty nesters, only 29 school-aged children per 100 unit apartments are projected compared to single-family residential homes, which have 64 children per 100 new construction single-family residents. according to this Harvard study that I read, that I have here. So, you know, obviously if you have quite a few less children, the impact on traffic should be less. You know, you're traveling less for, you know, soccer needs and things like that. The economic impact for our area should be great. Taxes generated, you know, 250, 300,000 plus annually. New jobs, a boost to local economy, actually increases, according to this study that I read, increases property values. So I think it's going to be a great impact on our area, not a negative impact. As far as children are concerned, you know, the need for affordable housing, and you know, we're not aimed at Section 8 or anything like that. It's going to be very nice, but it's still, there's a great need for affordable housing. There was a survey done that 85% of the population believes that affordable housing is a huge need of ours right now. And I can definitely agree, and I think most people would. But housing stability is extremely important in the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of children and adults. Housing instability can seriously jeopardize a child's performance in school and have lasting gaps on achievement. Affordable housing is just extremely important, the stability for our youth. So as far as impact on the local schools, you know, for that whole complex, we're looking at maybe 78 children. And, you know, those aren't all new children that are just magically going to move to our town because we built this apartment complex. They're just going to move out of, you know, less desirable housing into something that's going to be very, very nice. You know, the ones that come, you know, like I said, apartments aren't geared toward children typically, but the few that we get, you know, should have a very positive impact on them. Also, affordable housing is extremely important for the elderly. There's a 40% of elderly people are considered to be below the poverty level. And 50% of those, half of their income goes to housing. So affordable housing and apartment complexes are extremely important for our elderly Americans. So that's it. I'll open it up for questions.
All right, does anybody have any questions for the applicant right now?
Yeah, I have a quick question. You had mentioned that that you didn't see traffic to be a problem, but putting 540 odd new cars onto Bienville Boulevard on an already busy street wouldn't have an impact?
Well, according to the study that I read, that technically so single-family residents typically have 2 cars per household, where apartment complex typically has 1 car per unit. So even though the requirement is 2 parking spaces per unit, typically that's not the case. You know, so I wouldn't see that there's going to be 500 additional, you know, cars on the road. But in addition to that, according to this study, you know, I didn't write this stuff, but this Harvard study said that apartment dwellers that live, you know, closer to town spend 42% less time on the roads traveling. You know, and I guess, 1, they don't have children, they're taken to these different events, but 2, they're closer to shopping, so less time spent on the road, closer to, you know, the different amenities that are, you know, near the apartment. So supposedly it's less traffic than it would be for the same amount of, you know, single-family residents. And of course, we're already on a 4-lane highway, opposed to, let's say, if you were back in, you know, Ocean Beach Estates or, you know, St. Andrews, where you're dealing with that, you know, single, you know, one-way, you know, double-lane traffic. So I would think that as far as location, that would be the ideal location.
Anybody else got anything for that?
Yeah, keep on pushing the mic down.
Yeah,
Yeah, there we go.
yeah, just staying away further from it may not.
Brian, I got a question for you. Have y'all gone ahead and purchased the property, or is it contingent upon what y'all are looking at?
You know, me and my partner,
Just recent and everything, so like within the last couple of weeks. I'm just curious and everything.
yeah, we bought it, what, maybe a month ago?
Yeah.
Like
Okay,
yeah,
so they just haven't updated on that part. I knew the former owner, Charlie Carr, and everything, so it's all off range. I think your concept of what y'all got and what you want to do with it is that property's kind of locked in with the property all around it, so it really developing it as something like that. We did look at, what was it, 2018, when they wanted to do the condo, not condos.
This property?
I'm trying to remember when they were.
I know the one concept, Charlie had several ideas on it, but he was looking at it in assisted living, which is more of a commercial development, but yeah.
The other one was over by the, wasn't this property, one over by the little cutting golf course place. That's where they were gonna put in a big development.
Yeah, that's what this was.
This is the old driving range, so yeah. He had several ideas, but assisted living was one that he was.
Anybody else have anything for the applicant? I got a couple of questions for him. So like Matt, I mean, I think it's a good fit. I don't disagree with that at all. That's the good news. You probably heard that coming. My problem is, it seems, I mean, it's a lot of conjecture. So, you know, we have to be able to say like, hey, this can accommodate, you know, this property can accommodate the use. And to your point, you say, detention, well, that they say, oh, we can cut it in pipes, but we don't know that you can do that. And so we would have to approve it, just kind of at the word of that, and then you say it's not going to impact, you know, Highway 90, but it's just conjecture. You say that the pipe on the outside is huge, so it's got capacity, but you don't know that because it could be at capacity. We don't know that. So, you know, just that the public interest, health, safety, and general welfare would be promoted. I don't feel like I have enough information right now to be able to say absolutely, positively, you're not going to overload anything, you're not going to overload the utilities. That would be my biggest concern on as presented. The site plan, I have some other notes. Is this going to be a gated community?
Yeah.
So you have a,
Yes, it will.
So how will the gate work with two entrances? I guess I'm more familiar with apartments that would have, you know, the main entrance.
Yeah, it'll have the same thing. You'll have the code to get in, of course, the fire department and all that. We'll have the additional codes. Now, as far as the planning portion of things, I know in the, you know, I didn't print it out, but of course all those different additional steps have to still take place. You know, as far as the, you know, Mr. Morgan put in his outline of what we have to do. So all those different things as far as the city approvals, you know, all that will have to come into effect as far as the storm drain and all that kind of stuff. You know, because sometimes they build retention ponds, sometimes they do these different things.
You have no room to build a pond, so it would almost have to be, you know, I've dealt with a lot of underground drainage and water detention in my days, and it's extraordinarily expensive, and it takes a lot of area. It's a lot more than you would ever expect, and I mean, you know, at that point, you're just covering all your parking lots. I don't know that I agree with the parking. I know it's got the two per, but you've got double loaded rows on the outside that are, you know, serving only one unit, and then all the other units only have a single row in front of them that can be served. So I don't think the parking distribution really accommodates very well for the apartment uses. I think you're going to find a lot of your people that live in the middle apartments are going to have to park a lot further away. The parking will go very quickly.
Yeah, that's around that little park area.
And then there's no dimensions on these things. I mean, I feel like maybe I see a faint line that's supposed to be the setback. We don't have setbacks called out.
Yeah, the engineer couldn't be here. He had a death in his family, so I didn't want him to come. But on the, you know, of course, you got the parking, and the buildings are way off from there. But just from on the west side, from the property line to the curb of the parking, it is over 15 feet. You know, and same thing around the sides. That fence, that of course has to be moved. You know, so from the property line on the east side to just to the parking curb, you know, is a good 10 foot or so. So there's plenty of space before you even get to the parking spaces.
And then you have that random box on the railroad right away that's not explained. What is that? It's kind of a cutout. I don't know.
So I believe it's a cell tower.
Yeah,
that is.
That's a cell phone tower, and of course, you know, they have an easement to get in there through there, and it runs parallel to that particular, you know, walkway link to it. And it's got an easement across the back, the southern portion of it, going off to the west.
Wade, do you know? So where's the site plan checklist? So do you know off the top of your head? Is it in the UDC or is it on the back of our application?
It would be on the back of the application.
So the site plan typically does require a lot more information than what's presented, right? I mean, actual dimensions and everything shown, or did you
Not for conditional use.
Not for conditional use, they're more,
That would be in the design review, has a very long list of requirements.
Yeah, the design review is.
So what kind of access, what's your means of getting in here? I mean, I see your two entrances, but are they lined up with curb cuts? Are you doing left turns in, left turns out? Are you only doing right in, right out? Are you only letting, you know, you have the main entrance and
Well, the main entrance should be over there by the office that's right there, you know, facing Highway 90 right there. So that'll be our main entrance coming in, of course. You know, this other one, you'll be able to come in as well. But that one's right next to Popeyes, you know, right there on Highway 90. The main entrance is right next to Domino's Pizza.
So how do I get in there from Highway 90?
Well, right across from the office there is a, you know, a center road that you can go straight across if you wanted to, and you could go into the condominiums across the street if you wanted to. So, you know, you could actually turn off of 90 and come in
from a left turn,
both directions on that particular spot. As far as across from Popeyes, or between Popeyes right there, I think there's only one direction. You're going to have to be headed east and turn in, you know.
If you wanted to use that turning median right there, you would almost be better moving that easement access right there and moving over and closer to Community Bank right there to line up with Highway 90, turning median.
Yeah, we discussed that.
Up to me, but I can't see. I mean, it's not. I'd love to see on the site plan Highway 90 for that reason.
But like, you know, this is definitely a preliminary drawing for, you know, specifically for the conditional use permit.
Probably the conditional use permit, if we approve it, I mean, if we approve it, like, we don't really see this again, right? I mean, we just go to design review.
Unless there's a substantial change and it needs to be amended.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm sure there'll probably be things that would be tweaked along the way for sure.
How far back would the gates be located?
I would think probably parallel to the front of the building right over here, as far on this side. As far as in here, you know, the property line is, you know, when you see where that's at. So it'd probably be about, maybe about 40 or feet, so 50 feet inward.
Like Parliament, make that is.
Something like that.
Parliament, I mean,
Well, that's what I'm worried about, is
trying to stack them right there.
One of the guys trying to get his number in and
Yeah, I mean,
hanging out on Highway 90.
Well, you got to think from Highway 90, I mean, the property line is still another 40 feet from Highway 90. So from there all the way to the entrance of the property, I mean, that's got to be 150 feet, you know.
The way I've seen them kind of comfortably done is you kind of have an offset off to the outside, so you have where somebody needs to kind of pull over.
Well, but they don't have room to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, they have two little fingers that barely come and touch 90. They can't do wider roads without acquiring more.
I'm not talking, what?
You probably stack 7 to 8 cars in there. I mean, you see the lines of like Popeyes all the way out to Highway 90 all the time.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to avoid, though.
Yeah, but they're also, they've gotten a lot smarter with these keyless gates. And then you get old tags sticking in the windshield, you pull up and it scans it.
Sure, but the guy that's coming to rent that blocks everybody with the keyless gates is you know, I mean, I don't know.
Right now, if we approve this, we're just approving the development itself. They have to go through a design thing, and that's what comes in, and that's what you would get down to.
Yeah,
The site plan is
the
attached
site
to
plan
our
is attached,
CUP.
yeah. This is really the first
We're
kind
doing
of
the site
these, this is really the first kind of this CUP that you all have been, have reviewed, where it is new construction, and so it does have the site plan. So if there are any substantial changes to this site plan, it would have to come back to you.
So Marshall,
It's more like a sketch plat than it is a.
So, you know, it says here, through the issuance of a CUP with a site plan adopted by the planning commission. So we're not approving it's not like doing a rezoning where you're just kind of approving like, hey, we can allow apartments. We're saying like, we're good with this.
But I think, you know, you're missing a common area where, play area, for lack of a better term.
I don't see it either yet.
So there's a lot of things that's not clear. This thing looks like a lot of stuff packed in, and there's no common quality area, I guess, for lack of a better term.
I think it's great use. I really, really do. I think it's a good use. It just, this site plan that we were given feels very insufficient to me. And we're still in a public, we ain't even heard from the audience yet, I guess. I could kind
Well, I was
of.
under the impression that the first, plan was to get the conditional use permit, and then we tweak everything later with the, with the landscaping architects, with all the, all the engineering that goes on with the topographical and all these types of things would have to be submitted for approval.
The true design would, but we would need enough information to know it can work. So the landscape architects have, where would I see that little triangle piece in the corner? I have no idea if that's half an acre or, 1,000 square feet, or not in the corner, I'm sorry, kind of not too far from the cell tower. So maybe that's enough area to do a park, I'm not sure. I don't know how big that pool is.
Probably that area right there, I would say is at least 100 feet between the buildings there on the back. The buildings are 20 foot apart in between the two.
Yeah.
So that area through there's got to be at least, 100 something feet. So that, that would be a perfect place for, a little picnic area and some grills and things like that. Where the pool is, we might put on each side of that, some sort of pavilion space. A gym will probably end up going someplace, maybe either in the main structure up here by the road, or maybe next to the pool. So I was under the impression that this was sort of the rough draft of what we're going to do, because to do all those other things to get them to fruition, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring all that together. Where to get the conditional use permit, hey, we're okay with doing this and going forward with you spending that kind of money. That's kind of where I thought we were at. So I guess I was under a misconception.
It's kind of like a 30% submittal is probably about the, that's just, somewhere around there. But we don't. I don't see a lot of it. I'm just, how about this? Let's hear everybody else out, and then we'll talk more later. Okay. Usually we give the applicant, if there's some naysayers that you disagree with and want to add something or whatever. We'll bring you back up. Let's go ahead and get public comment. All right, we kind of got a little bit deeper than we meant to on the first run. Now that we are still on the conditional use permit for the 2302 Bienville, is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak in favor of the apartment complex going in there? Anybody in favor of apartments at 2302 Bienville by Popeyes? And I guess you immediately east of, it's not the CVS, but that shopping center?
Immediately east of, the shopping center with.
That'd be Domino's right there in the top right corner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, anybody in favor of? Anybody in opposition to apartments right there? All right, name and address. I think I could guess.
Can y'all hear me from here?
We need the microphone just because there's a recording that'll be used.
My name is Richard Costello. I'm at 2580 Government Street. And, that property's a good bit away from me, but it's commercial property. But I agree with Mr. Davis's comment. 270 units, I don't agree with the study that was referenced that the average apartment has one car. I just don't agree with that. You're talking about 1, 2, I think the occupancy in Jackson County, I hadn't studied it, but it's probably more like 2.5, 3 people per unit. Has anyone tried to drive from Burger King to Hospital Road during the day? It's highly congested. If there's 2 cars per unit here, we're talking about putting another 500 and something cars on the road. I don't think we're going to get Highway 90 there 3-lane. If anyone's ever gone to Domino's or Popeyes and tried to go back towards Beckville, go back west, it's not an easy way to pull the U there. We've had 2 serious accidents on 90 in the last 7 days. Unless there's a light put there to regulate traffic. I think it's a great piece of property. I think there's probably higher and better use for it. But putting 270 units in that property, it just seems like we're trying to put 10 pounds of taters in a 5-pound bag. So that's my comment.
10 pounds of taters in a 5-pound bag. Got it. All right. Anybody else in opposition to speak against the site plan you see in front of you? Anybody else? All right. You want to call the applicant? Anybody have any other comments, questions for the applicant?
Do that after we go out of, okay. Go out of public hearing.
Okay. Did you want to speak to Mr. Costello's comments?
I can real quick, briefly.
Okay.
You know, obviously I didn't write this study, you know, but, you know, it's just something I found. It was the Harvard University multifamily rental house study done, and this was a while back, but, you know, so, I mean, who knows what they really know or not, but it just says, on average, apartment residents own fewer cars than single-family homeowners. You know, that's, I'm not saying there won't be a bunch there, but, you know, that's just what this study found. On average, apartment residents own fewer cars than single-family homeowners. Then later average 2 cars per household compared to with only one of the former. So with, you know, compared to 100 single-family residentials. But also, it even went down to break down. I mean, they were very in-depth with it. It even went to break down times of day during the week. It says weekdays, 42% less traffic than coming from a single-family residential home of the same amount. On Saturdays, 58% less traffic. In peak hours, 81% less traffic. On Sunday, 50% less traffic. So, you know, I'm not sure exactly how they came up with this, you know, this pretty in-depth study. But, you know, I mean, you know, I'm not asking you to take my opinion for it. That's just what the document said that I read. And, you know, of course, everybody can do their own research. The thing is about it is, you know, affordable housing is a need that we have to have. You know, I mean, and anybody that doesn't see that, I mean, they must be blind, because, I mean, 85% of the country believes that affordable housing is an important, you know, a critical issue right now. You know, so it's, and I agree. I mean, these are going to be high, you know, very nice, very good quality, but at the same time at an affordable price to where, you know, people aren't spending hopefully 50% of their income on housing, to where, you know, it improves our community. So I think it'll have a great impact on our community. You know, so I sure hope y'all approve the conditional use permit.
You say affordable housing, what do you think the units will rent for?
Sir?
You say it's affordable housing, what do you think the units will rent for?
Well, I think we'll be in line with the rest of the apartments in the area, even though they're brand new, and a lot of the apartments are dated. But, and I didn't bring that exactly with me, but I want to say the single-family resident, the single-bedroom units are about $1,000, $950 to $1,000, where the 2 bedrooms are around $1,250 or so. And there's only very few 3 bedrooms, because, like I said, just you know, there's just not a lot of need for those according to the research that I've done. But the 3 bedrooms are a little bit more pricey, about $1,300. You know, I did a Google search of you know, rentals in Ocean Springs here recently for single-family houses, and the cheapest one I found was $1,400 a month for 1,000 square foot out in the Ocean Beach Estates. You know, so you got to drive. You know, if you're working in town, you got to drive 30 minutes. You know, both ways when gas is $5 a gallon. You know, so and you know, 1,800 square foot house, $1,800 a month. I saw a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in quite a while at the store here recently, him with his wife, and she's a school teacher. He runs he's a business, he manages a business here in Ocean Springs, but they sold their house kind of at the, you know, starting of the property values going up, and with their idea of, hey, we're going to buy something else, and then got quickly priced out of the market. Then interest rates went up, so they have no choice but to rent. So they decided to rent. Well, the renters, you know, the people that are leasing to them, changed the rent from $1,200 a month to $1,700 a month on their anniversary date. They have no choice but to go and find an apartment. And these are very nice. You know, they're empty nesters. They don't have kids. You know, so it's perfect for them. But it's a shame that they can't afford to buy a house at this moment. So, you know, we see these apartments as a great, you know, a great segue for homeowners. You know, so
I think it's a great location and a great idea, and I'm for affordable, and I'm for multifamily, which is not always the case. But I think it's a great location. I just feel like it's don't know, the layout seems like it's missing something, and I'm not sure that it can meet our ordinance, and I'm not sure, I don't really vote unless it's a tiebreaker, but I don't know that I could vote for it just as presented. I think we got three options, right? We could approve it, and then it would go to the board, and the board would have to make their final determination. I don't know how the current moratorium would play into their decision. We could deny it, and then you could appeal it to the board, or we can defer it. You're welcome to tell us how you feel about it, if you want to go back to try to address some of these concerns, or if you want us to try to push forward with a hard and fast, we can try to push forward with a hard and fast. But
Well, from what I read in the thing, I wish I would have printed it out so I could find the exact guideline. I was just trying to look at it on here. And, Mr. Morgan had put on there that this, that we still have a whole bunch of other steps. I would assume your concerns would be met with all those additional steps. I would think that today is just saying, yes, y'all have our approval to move forward with conditional use permit to do apartments if the Board of Aldermen agrees. Then we still have to go through all these other list of steps that I think that would more than sufficiently, settle those concerns, I would imagine. But, I don't know.
I'm just one guy, but that's not what our charge is in the ordinance as far as what we need to do. That's just my opinion. All right, thank you. Do I have a motion to close public hearing?
So,
Second. Motion, that way and second that way. Amanda can figure it out later. Mike and Marshall. All in favor of closing public hearing?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we're out of public hearing. Who was it you, Mike, about to say something? Somebody, Marshall?
Yeah, I have one concern, and that's down here with the quote that said if it's approved, a design review application must be submitted to include the site plan as approved as part of the covenant.
Right.
So, I don't like that.
This site
Approving
plan.
a site plan without seeing any of the details or addressing any of the other stuff, that's my problem. If we could say, CUP is approved pending review of the design review application, maybe that would be something better, but this is.
The site plan, yeah. There's a lot of major items, and I agree with you. Just, not even knowing what Highway 90, how the driveways line up. Are we talking about right in, right out, left turns, J-hooks, all that, all the things we talked about. That's the problem with this application versus your thinking, Brian, is this is one of the few processes, and Carolyn, correct me if I'm wrong, this is one of the few ones that's going to carry, like the site plan carries with the approval. This is the site plan. So, if you went and connected a couple of those roads, you may have to come back and see us. And
minor changes to it probably wouldn't trigger that, similar to a sketch plat.
Talking about maybe putting a gym in, I would think that would probably.
That would be a major change, and I would think that need to come back to you.
Common area with grass and stuff where people could.
And again, we're not talking about drainage calculations and things like that. He's correct that would come, but it seems that some of the questions you have are more logistical and just the configuration. And if those are the questions that you have, then yes, that would be
drainage calculations, but not having like so much as so. I'm assuming, I don't know, but I'm assuming they're going to try to discharge to that culvert. Well, if that culvert's 10 feet deep, they got all the room in the world to do drainage and detention underground. If that culvert's got 1 foot of cover and it's only 3 feet deep, they can't do that, and we can't say that we're not impacting the, health and safety and general welfare.
Well, and I think just like with any other subdivision, he would have to make any corrections that were required when you get through that process, similar to a subdivision. And if he's unable to do so, then a modification would have to come back to you. The bigger concerns would be the questions that you all have that would impact the overall configuration, building placement, number of buildings, things like that are more in the bones of it, the design of it. Things like how the drainage is handled, I think it's a good concern to bring up, but any modifications that are brought up during design review would be addressed, and he's correct in that, unless they majorly change the layout that you all have seen.
But if I say it this way, like I don't have to know that it does work, but I have to believe that it will work.
If you have concerns that it might not work, then you would want to request some additional information, or at least from Public Works.
Area being added and not a lot of accommodation for it. What you got?
No. Colvin?
I'll make a motion. I just don't think we have enough information here to know that this is feasible. I agree with Andy. I like the location. I like the idea. I think it is a good place for apartments. But this plan right here, I don't know that it's feasible and what the impact of the city would be. And based on that, I make a motion to defer this decision.
Okay. So the deference would go to the next meeting or any really, how does that?
Well,
got 2 meetings
you
to
would,
get it back?
you would want to defer it to your next meeting. It has to come to us, but if there is a list of items that you need clarification on, if you vote to defer it and request that information be brought back to you at your next meeting, so that you can make have a clearer opinion of its viability or clarification that it doesn't have the negative impacts. But you would defer it to the next meeting, or to such a point where he has the information.
I mean, do you think and you get 2 meetings before it's a new application, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
do you think?
Well, before it has to be re-advertised. We can defer it to the August meeting, and then if it's not ready, then we can defer it to September, and after that, it has to be re-advertised and re-noticed.
Yeah, we're not looking for engineer drawings or anything else like that. We're just looking for a little bit more detail on, traffic patterns, feasibility, where's the green space, a more general or a more thought out idea of where's the drainage gonna go, is there an approvable use of culvert, just things like that, you know what I'm saying? We're just looking for a little bit more, like just the next step, but we're not looking for engineer drawings.
Okay. I mean, if we can, just get kind of a concrete list, I mean, I'd be more than happy to put all that.
Can you have Amanda type up the minutes, and then I don't mind even looking at the minutes and making sure.
We'll have to suffer through without her, but yes.
We can take care of that.
We get you a list, and I mean, you've got most of them probably written down, so
But
start on those, but we'll
we'll
get you-
clarify the exact items that they're looking
Do that, that's fair.
If we defer this would go to next month's meeting, so we'd go ahead and push out the Alderman's meeting to the meeting.
Right, it would just, since that meeting, the way, because this is a public hearing, whatever happens, whatever recommendation comes out, then a public hearing is advertised for the next board meeting. So that hasn't been scheduled yet. So once there's resolution in the planning commission, then it would be advertised for the next board meeting with their
This will give you a
recommendation.
month to have, your engineer and whomever just kind of do enough to answer some of these bigger items. If he's not done in August, that's what I was asking earlier. If he's not done in August, it's no big deal. You come to September. If he's not done by September, then you got to re-advertise. And it's not a new application, I don't guess. It's just a re-advertisement of public hearing.
Yeah, it's just a re-advertisement,
I imagine
re-notification if
that
it goes
30
more
days
than
would
2
be more
meetings.
time for you.
So it'd be automatically on the next.
Right.
Meeting, but for some reason, I just contact.
Well, that's what we'll put in the minutes, that it's deferred to the August meeting, and
Technically,
so
it's
that
not
everybody
deferred
who
yet.
was paying
Yes.
attention is aware of that. Yeah.
Technically, it's not deferred yet. I do have a motion to defer it by Kevin. Do I have
We
a second?
would.
Second by Marshall. All in favor of deferring to the next meeting?
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Thank you. I do think it's a great location. I do think it's a good idea. I just think it needs to be a little more complete before we can move forward.
And who made the second?
Marshall.
I'm trying to take notes for me.
Yeah, take one of these. Yeah, I think so.
Between the two of us, we should be able to get them all.
All right, let's take a deep breath. We're coming up to the home stretch, I reckon. Item 4G, public hearing, 1208 Bowen Avenue, parcel ID 611-912.000. Tyler Smith is requesting a residential short-term permit. Do I have a motion to go to public hearing? So moved. Motion by everybody, second also by everybody. I heard Matthew say it loudly, so let's encourage Matthew to speak loudly more often. We'll get to that on it. And we'll go to Mike the second. I guess that's Carolyn, right?
Yeah. Yes, and once again, I'll clarify, we do have, handfuls of short-term rental applications on each meeting, but that is simply us still catching up. We haven't had this very large influx of applications. This is us catching up when we were on hold, when the cap was being adjusted.
How many of those are left, do you know?
I think this would bring us up in the low 60s. So.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant as far as like the catch-up.
Oh, I don't think there's very many left. I don't know the exact number, but we've been doing about 4 or 5 per meeting, just to spread them out a little bit. So, in order of readiness. So this one, the applicant is going to be the local property manager, and does meet the residence requirement. The There was no input received prior to this packet or this meeting, so and the notice was sent to 75 property owners in the adjacent 500 feet area. The inspection was approved. It passed with the requested maximum occupancy of six people and 2 vehicles, with no other reported code infractions or police activity related to use of the property. It meets all compliant elements of the short-term rental ordinance and is therefore recommended for approval due to subject to annual renewal.
Okay. Is the applicant here? You don't look like Tyler Smith.
I am not Tyler Smith. Eric Nichols, 929 Washington Avenue. The applicant called me at about 5 o'clock. He has a child emergency. So I have 2 puppies that have probably pooped themselves in the shed, but I'm here tonight. I represent the applicant. I actually have done some work with this property and really a lot of his other properties. This property is just south of, I think, Murky Waters, also just to the east of other properties that he owns, including Lady Mae's, the Quitzky's building. I think Lori Bound just to the south of that. There's other VRBOs on Bowen Avenue, I believe, and like she said, it meets all the requirements, so I'm good.
Okay. All right, thank you, Eric. We'll call you back up if we need to. All right, so we are talking about the short-term rental on Bowen Avenue. Does anybody want to speak in favor of, in support of? Anybody in opposition to the Bowen Avenue? Anybody, Bowen Avenue? Short-term rental, once, twice. Do I have a motion to go out of public hearings? Motion by Matthew, second by, was that you, Marshall? So Marshall, all in favor of closing public hearing?
Aye.
All opposed? Do I have any questions, comments, concerns? If not, anybody want to take a motion?
Recommend approval of a short-term rental permit for 1208 Bowen Avenue, subject to annual renewal.
Second. All right, motion Kevin, second Marshall to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That one will pass, so you can let Tyler know, so it doesn't go on the next meetings, it's got to be re-advertised, first meeting.
It doesn't get re-advertised, but
Or
it has
not.
a waiting period,
Yeah,
so it'll be the first one in August.
Thank you. I have a computer in front of me now, so I can even tell them, that's the 2nd. That is August 2nd.
And it'll be on consent August 2nd.
All right, next one is going to be another public hearing for another short-term rental. This one at 809 General Pershing Avenue, parcel ID 60119392000. Allison Pleasant Headley is requesting a residential short-term rental permit. Motion to go into the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion Matthew, second Mike. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, well, you know, it's the
All right.
same thing, right? All right,
Not to
Karen.
mention, yes. As you can see in your packet, excuse me, Chris Dearman will be the local property manager and does satisfy the residency requirement. The notice was sent to 62 property owners within the 500-foot buffer, and no input was received to date. The inspection took place on May 18th and was approved for the requested 6 occupants and 2 vehicles. No code violations or other complaints were documented in the past 12 months related to use of this property. It does meet all of the requirements outlined in the code and is therefore recommended for approval for an annual permit subject to annual renewal.
Okay. Anybody got any questions? Is the applicant here? Lieutenant, do you want to speak? Do you want to come back to this side of the table to speak?
I'll stay on this side. I'm Michael Pleasant, 1415 Government Street. I'm here in place of Allison Pleasant Headley, and I think everything is in compliance with what she needs to do with the house to be approved, so we're just waiting for.
Waiting for us, huh?
Right.
You can say.
Yes.
Anybody got any questions for Michael while he's up here? Secret herbs and spices on the catfish?
All good.
All right. Anybody want to speak in favor of the General Pershing short-term rental? Anybody in favor? Anybody in opposition to General Pershing short-term rental? Anybody want to speak? All right. Motion to close public hearing made by Mike, second by Marshall. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We're out of the public hearing. Any questions, comments, concerns? Anybody want to take a motion?
Recommend approval of a residential short-term permit for 809 General Pershing Avenue, subject to annual renewal.
Motion Kevin, second Marshall, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. All right, item 4I is a public hearing. This one's at 104 Cary Cove, parcel ID 610-374-01000. Jared Rhodes requesting a residential short-term rental permit. Motion to go to public hearing. Motion Marshall, second Kevin, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Carolyn?
All right. Chris Dearman will also be the property manager of this property. And so all of those requirements are met. There was a notice sent to 68 property owners within the 500-foot buffer. We did receive one phone call with concern, and that is documented in your memo, but no further input was received following that phone call. The inspection was passed on June 6th for the maximum occupancy of 8 and number of vehicles of 4 as requested. And again, no code violations or complaints regarding this property have been received in the last 12 months. So all due diligence shows that it is in compliance with the ordinance and is therefore eligible for approval, subject to annual renewal.
All right, it says in the, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It says in the feedback that, person stated that she and the entire neighborhood was opposed. We don't have anything.
We didn't receive anything
Have that
further.
with us.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Are you the applicant?
I am.
Did you want to speak?
It's up to you guys.
Well, it's up to you. If you don't want to speak now, if you have anything
I
to
can
address later.
reply. I mean, I'm willing to hear their concerns for sure.
Okay. All right, anybody in favor of, in support of the 104 Cary Cove? Anybody in support of? Anybody in opposition to? I saw some hands. All right. Name and address at the microphone. Remember, if somebody says something you agree with, you can say, I agree, and then you get your 3 minutes to say whatever you want to.
Greg Williams, 132 Cary Cove. This has come to our attention. We're in a small neighborhood. It's 2 cul-de-sacs. I guess you can't tell by the pictures there. A number of these ladies have lived there since the neighborhood opened. My wife Melissa has lived there for over 20 years. And the neighbors all look after each other. It's not an official neighborhood watch, but it is a neighborhood watch, believe me. We just opposed to people coming and going in the neighborhood. There's kids playing in there. I just heard 4 vehicles. I don't believe that you can support 4 vehicles in that driveway, and the house is right up by Bechtel, and there's a little island that separates the road right in front of the house. So I don't know if you can park 4 vehicles in there at one time. Our question would be that if you allow this to go in there, what's next in there? Is this going to be a continual thing? I don't fully understand all the jargon, but as far as I think this is a residential neighborhood, and to me, not knowing any better, being in the school business for 38 years, to me it seems like you're going to allow people to open a business at the front of our neighborhood, and we strongly oppose that. And we do have signatures of, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Val, 21 of the 25 homes in that neighborhood have signed not supporting this.
23 homes. There's 23 homes and 19 signatures against.
Okay, well, I had that wrong. So it was a large amount, 90% at least. So we got that squared up. Again, it's a small subdivision. People look after each other. Everything's pretty well kept in the subdivision, and we just don't want cars coming in and out of there. We don't know who they are. And I guess that's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Well, I think they're gonna. Y'all have you don't have anything you wanted to leave behind, did you?
Oh, I do.
Yeah. Is that the signature list?
This is the signatures in here.
Did you need to make a copy of it, or is this something?
Yes,
you can
ma'am.
do with
It's not professionally done, but
This is a, okay.
and
I mean,
this
you want-
is all the people in the neighborhood here.
Okay.
This is all our signatures.
Okay.
And it goes over on to the next page there.
And Carolyn, I have verbally from George Bradley, that's next to me verbally, he wanted to be on there, but I
Okay.
didn't know if I could write it. since it wasn't his signature, but he wanted to be on that list too.
Um,
He couldn't make it tonight, but he's a
Yeah.
homeowner right next to me.
I would ask him to, because any input, if, we can make a
Can I
note of
have
that,
him
but if
call
he
you?
can email me.
Okay.
And just so I can document that. What was his name?
George Bradley,
Okay.
he's the homeowner.
So that would just be kind of in between, regardless of what if we approve it, he can tell her that, and then that would be on the boards.
It'll be reflected in the information that goes to the board.
As far as what you got, it looks like a lot of sheets of paper. Is it nothing but signatures?
Yeah, it's their notice that they received, and, what I can do is, if you want, is this all of it, or I can scan it and send you back a copy if you'd like, just to have it.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, so do I have a motion to accept those into
So
the
moved.
minutes? I got a motion, Matthew, second. Marshall, we'll go with Joe. All in favor of accepting those to the minutes?
Aye.
All right. So all that did is just let that petition be shown in the record.
Right.
All right, so I was calling for opposition to, go ahead. Name and address at the microphone, please.
Microphone?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it just helps with the recording of the minutes.
My name is Sally Diaz. I live 502 Heatherstone, which is, my driveway is directly across from this house. And we are a small neighborhood, like you said, we 23 homes. When it first opened, it was a bunch of young divorced people, women, and we all looked after each other. And now we're a bunch of old divorced people. And we do look after each other. And we don't want any riffraff or anything coming in that. We worked hard to pay for those houses. And we're still there. There's several of us that are just still, but since 1994 is when I moved in. And we worked hard to pay for them. This guy came and bought the house. We had no idea. We were kind of blindsided by it. We thought he was, coming to move there, but he didn't even live here. And I'm like right directly across from his driveway. And like Greg said, there's not enough parking area for all those people to do there. And then it would be backing out into the little middle that has a little, I don't know what you call it, Val?
Cul-de-sac.
Well, it's not cul-de-sac, but
It's like a parking lot. It's a little.
and then it's got there's hardly any parking on that street at all. You can't park. The houses are very small. We have 0 lot lines, and I don't know where people would park. And we were, like I said, we were blindsided, and we strictly oppose it. We're a bunch of good neighbors that take care of each other, and we want to keep it that way. We don't want anything riffraff or anything coming in there. You don't know when you rent something, short term, who's going to come in there. And we're a bunch of old women. I'm 81, and everybody else is older too.
For 81. Let the record show you look good for 81.
Pardon me?
Let the record show you look good for 81.
Anyway, I told you we were old. Most of us are old in that neighborhood. So please, we don't want it. We really don't want it. And I wish that Jared had told us this when he moved in. We went and befriended him. Oh, we love you. He was so nice. He's a youth minister and all this. I'm not going to talk bad about him, but he should have let us know that. And he didn't. So that's my speech.
All right, anybody else in opposition to?
Yeah, I'm always. We know.
I still love Val.
Neighbor will tell you. Val Klish, 503 Heatherstone. Been there the longest of anybody. Since 29 years. And we, like Sally said, there's no outlet. You go down here, one entrance, one outlet. This is what you call a small hotel. Now come on. And these people are coming to have vacation and a good time and drinking and partying all night long. I'm pretty plain spoken, we're not going to put up with it. The cops will be coming 40 times a night. We're not putting up with it. Okay?
Okay. All right, anybody else in opposition to? Got a hand in the back. Come on up, name and address, please.
So my name is Tom Shock. I'm at 516 Heatherstone. I just want to kind of foot stomp what they said. I mean, the neighborhood is tight. They don't like a lot of that stuff. And I have gone to Airbnbs and it's interesting when you look those places up sometimes and you look at what they have listed there. And sometimes they'll say, they'll have a list of rules like, no drinking, no parking on the street, no doing this, no doing that. And ultimately, those neighborhoods still have those issues. So I guess what I'm saying is, just to go along with what everybody else is saying, I think it will bring issues, and I'm just opposed to it.
Okay. Thank you. Do I see another hand over there? Go ahead. Name and address, please.
Angie Huckabee, 140 Cary Cove, and I just agree with everything that he said and they said. That's kind of like my happy place, and I want to keep it that way.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Angie. All right, anybody else? Come on.
Melissa Williams, 132 Cary Cove. I agree.
I didn't even have time to write your name down.
You agree that you oppose.
Yeah.
Right. I agree with y'all, yeah.
Yeah, we got it. All right, anybody else in opposition to? All right, I'm assuming Jared, you wanted to speak now?
Yeah, I'd be glad. All right, first off, I do love all my neighbors.
Sorry, name and address.
Can't do that, you're right. So 104 Cary Cove, and then I live for my, I guess, quote, full-time residence is 5328 Mississippi 305, Hernando, Mississippi. Did I say everything?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, I do love my neighbors, and I promise I did not mean to blindside you. I did come in and I made it aware that it is a second home. My goal is to still be able to come down. My goal is not to make this not a part of my life. In regards to riffraff, I agree 100%. I don't want it there. I understand there are guidelines. If there are people that are doing things that aren't allowed, not only do I encourage you to call the police, but if I'm aware, I'm going to call the police as well. So I'm not opposed to, I would like to think that it's not the case. However, I understand there's going to be times you stayed at an Airbnb. I assume you didn't break the rules, but there are going to be people that do, and if they do, they need to be put out. There is a system to where they're not allowed to rent again if that is the case. In regards to the parking, I mean, I've pulled in a trailer and a truck as well as a city inspector and the other person that came with him. That was 4 people in the driveway. I put in the guidelines not to cover the sidewalk. I mean, Cary Cove is a great neighborhood, and I'm not trying to, I don't want to take anything away from it in that respect. I think there's great people, at least the 3 in the front I know personally. I know I don't know Greg, and I don't know y'all as well. But it's a great neighborhood. My goal is not to degrade it in any way. I have no plans on letting the house be, the eyesore in the neighborhood. My goal is to keep it above ground and, keep it pure and whole. And look, I still love my neighbors, and I expect that when I come back in 2 weeks, I'll try and sit on the porch with Val and tell her I love her if she still loves me.
I love you too, but I don't want a hotel in my neighborhood.
And I understand your concern.
And let me tell you, you don't live here. You live in Olive Branch.
We can't have side conversations with me. All right, anything else?
There might have been one other concern that I thought somebody mentioned. I know riffraff traffic. In regards to pulling in, it is the front one in the neighborhood. It should not generate traffic as far as going through, but granted, it's more cars than me coming, and when I come, usually it's going to be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I try to be home. The weekend doesn't work as well for me. So there you go.
Yeah, they see where you have parking limited, no on-street parking call out.
Absolutely. As well as don't cover the sidewalk.
Okay. All right. Anybody have anything for that, or any of the audience, or do y'all want to close public hearing?
Motion to close public hearing.
All right, motion to close public hearing made by Mike, seconded by Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. We're out of public hearing. What y'all's thoughts? Marshall, I know you kind of probably have a...
I want to make 2 observations or 2 comments. One, Our job is to review applications and make sure that they meet all the requirements that are in the regulations and ordinances. If they do, then if we make a recommendation to approve or disapprove, it's because they don't meet the requirements. Doesn't mean whether or not we agree with what they say or not. We're strictly objectively looking at the ordinances. Secondly, just a thought, personal observation. I have lived next to a full-time renter and a couple houses down from a vacation rental. With a vacation rental, anytime anything goes wrong, you have the option of obviously complaining to the police, and as soon as that happens, the approval to rent the thing is immediately pulled back. With a full-time rental, lots of luck. Okay, so just in the back of your mind, but the most important thing is we are looking to see whether or not this meets all the requirements of the ordinance, and that's what we're making our recommendation.
One thing I like to point out too, if when there's a contentious one, is I've been on this board for what, 8? How long have we had the short-term rental? It started right about the time I got here.
It's been a, I
7
think originally,
years,
yeah.
something like that. But the question I always like to ask is, have we had any complaints, noise complaints, or police calls to any of the ones that we've had permitted?
We have not, we check every year. We haven't had any, what I'll call interim reports. We haven't had any phone calls that would have prompted us to revoke immediately or, have a problem with. But every year they do get re-inspected, and we contact building department for code enforcement, which would include anything from trash cans in the yard to general code enforcement and police reports. So if there are any problems with those that can be connected to the operation of the short-term rental itself. In other words, we did have one that had medical calls. That happens. But we haven't, in the years that we've been doing it, had any complaints show up that specifically related. But we do remind people that please, if on any permitted short-term rental, notify someone or document it, bring it to our attention, even if you don't feel comfortable to call the police. If we don't receive documentation of any infractions, we don't know about it. So if the rules are presented in the packet, and if the occupants are breaking the rental rules as approved, that's something that we would want to know about, and I'm sure the owner would want to know about as well. So yeah, we have not had any reports on any permitted. The ones that we've had problems with are ones that were operating without a permit.
How many do we currently have approved?
I can't remember the exact. There's some that are on the. We're just on this last agenda, but I think it brings us to the low mid 60s, out of 75. So it doesn't allow for anything else. And one of the things that I did here is what happens next. Nothing. This is non-transferable, so they can't sell it. The person, if they sell it, the new owner will have to go through the same process. So it's not transferable, and it does not allow for any other activity other than renting for less than 30 days. They cannot operate a business. They cannot do anything else that residential zoning does not allow.
So, just to reiterate, this is not the only one in this ward either.
Correct. I mean, the bulk of them are definitely in Ward 2 and near the downtown, but we do have a few scattered throughout that, again, have not received any complaints on those either.
It's like almost have a quorum to establish a homeowners association.
Well, then we have to pay a monthly fee. That's ridiculous.
That's up to the laws of your homeowners
The
association.
monthly fee is set by the homeowners.
Yeah, you guys can set your own monthly fee at $1.
I'm not paying you, Val, just saying.
Hey, sir, may I say one thing, no disrespect, but you said that your job is to make sure that the house meets compliances of whatever it needs to be for a bed and breakfast or VRBO?
Short-term
Right,
rental.
so let me ask you this question, then why do you notify us if we don't have any input?
Your input.
And all this goes to the Board of Aldermen with the final approval.
Okay.
That's your final approval. What we do is make sure that all the i's are dotted and the t's are crossed and everything is straight, and all your objections and everything and written objections will go to the Board of Aldermen. So that's really your final stop. here's to make sure that you've been heard, and we got all the detailed information, so they make final decision.
But to further that too, so we've had instances where it came in, and so if there's an HOA established and the HOA has a rule that says no short-term rentals, then there's no short-term rentals. Now, we've had it where an application's got to us, because cities don't maintain HOAs, and somebody showed up and said, I've got HOA, says no.
Yeah,
So that
we've received new information by notifying the neighbors that we didn't know about. We have, that has happened. And usually that it gets stopped before it even gets to you, so.
And the other thing I wanted to point out, it's been kind of said roundabout way, but the city of Ocean Springs did kind of do this ordinance almost from like, if they're going to do it anyway, let's try to put some teeth in the ordinance. They require a local property manager that lives within 2 miles of the city in case there's some kind of issue on site that's not necessarily a police matter but needs attention right away. So I would always recommend to the local residents in the area to make sure you have that guy's name and number on call in case there is an issue. And then if there's issues that require police intervention, I mean, it's no different than if you have a permanent neighbor, a long-term renter, or a short-term renter. If there's a crime occurring, an ordinance violation, anything like that, I'd be welcome to call the police. One more, but then we gotta get off.
Okay, we do have a couple of renters, they've been here like 7, 8 years,
Okay.
and we have no problem
Well,
with the long term. Yeah.
so we can't vote no on conjecture. We have to take an objective approach, and anyway, I don't know how we're
It
gonna vote,
almost
so.
is though like.
We're out of public hearing, ma'am, I'm sorry, we've gone around and around. This will go, whatever we vote on, if we vote affirmatively and y'all disagree, y'all can appeal it to the Board of Aldermen to reconsider our vote. If we vote against it, he can appeal it and it goes to the Board of Aldermen. Ultimately, they're just gonna have the final say-so on August 2nd. We recommend to the Board of Aldermen, does this meet the code? Is there any information? Here's all the concerns and everything else.
Do we need to come back on August 2nd?
That would be for the Board of Aldermen, yes. Yeah, no, there's no additional mailers on that, right?
No additional mailers, and it's not a public hearing, it is on consent. So what I always say is if you disagree with it, either submit that officially in writing to our department and contact your alderman and make sure that they're aware of it. Because it will take an alderman to pull it off of the consent unless we're notified as an appeal. So it's always best to contact your alderman and let them know.
Well, correct me,
So-
I did not misspeak. They can appeal the decision.
They can appeal it. So
Right.
as I said, there's two. If you,
If they appeal it, it
automatically comes off. But if we don't receive an official appeal, then the alderman can still pull it off.
So if we bring in a HMO to you?
If you submit, I don't know if establishing the HOA at this point, well, I don't know. We'd have to run that past legal. It hasn't happened yet, but yeah. But
Who do I come to see?
if you bring it to the planning department, and like I said, Amanda's out this week, so we're a little short-staffed, you can even email it to us.
I'll bring it down.
Yes.
I went and talked to her before.
And if we're not upstairs, you can just drop it off at the building department. They'll get it to us. Amanda will be out all week, so.
And all of this applies to you in reverse, right? So if it does get denied tonight, you do the same thing that you're talking about.
Right.
Okay.
All right. Keep in mind is that several years ago, we were concerned that there was all kinds of these rentals going on and there was no control. So that's why we put this ordinance in effect and put an initial number in effect. And then the Board of Aldermen decides whether or not to increase the number. They had increased it. So we had to have some control over the process, and this is what the process is.
This isn't, I mean, I can understand a Airbnb in like the historic part of town, but this is like.
Well, the problem, the ordinance, there's no limitations in the ordinance for location, so we can't not
Dead in
consider
the street.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to recommend residential short-term rental permit at 428 Holly Street, subject to annual renewal.
Recommend to approve. Second.
Was that you're on Cary Cove?
Cary Cove, sorry. Cary Cove. I've already moved on. I would like to amend that.
We'll take it,
Make a motion to recommend approval for short-term residential permit for 104 Cary Cove, subject to annual renewal.
That's the one I want to second.
Yeah. All right, Marshall seconds, Kevin motions, all in favor of approval?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, one more item, 4J, 428 Holly Street, parcel ID
Thank you so much for showing up.
Hi, Matthew.
I know. I
appreciate it.
I still love it.
I'm just gonna get his mayor. All right, you have a motion to go public hearing.
So moved.
Now I gotta decide. Motion, Kevin, second by Joe. He's the only one I heard clearly.
Amanda's gonna get you for that, I'm just saying.
All right, so.
Where were the divorced ladies at? Where are they at? They're all homeowners?
It's not your turn to speak yet, that's how it's turned. All right, so we are in public hearing for 428 Holly Street. We're in, Carolyn, you take it away before I say anything else.
Okay, assuming all of that I couldn't understand was the motion going public hearing.
Promise.
All right.
And I promise it was good.
Okay, as you have in your packet, the applicant is the local property manager, so that requirement is met. We did not receive any input prior to. There were notices sent to 69 of the surrounding property owners within 500 feet. The inspection was approved on June 9th for a maximum occupancy of 6 and maximum number of vehicles of 3. No complaints or code violations have been received over the last 12 months, and everything else met compliance. Therefore, it's recommended for approval, subject to annual renewal.
Okay. Anybody got any questions, comments, concerns for Carolyn before we move on?
On a little footnote, change the picture in the packet, so for official records.
You know, it was a very busy day.
Not the house?
No. Yeah, that was Bowen.
It's pretty good, Matthew. I'm actually impressed. Good job. I like that.
Was it the address they gave it away, or was it the house?
It was the house.
Yeah.
Because the Holly house is actually, he's done a lot of work.
Okay. All right, anything else before we call the applicant? Okay, does the applicant want to speak? Nope.
Well, come on now.
Well, we'll bring it back up if you get a lot of opposition. How about that?
About life easy.
Anybody want to speak in favor of 428 Holly Street short-term rental?
I'm in favor.
Anybody want to speak in opposition to 428 Holly Street? Anybody want to speak at 428 Holly Street? Anybody in the audience? Once, twice, sold? Do I have a motion to close public?
So moved.
Motion by Matthew, second by Marshall, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are out of public hearing. Questions, comments, concerns? Applicant, Carolyn, anybody?
All right, make a motion that we approve, recommend 428 Holly Street for short-term rental, subject to annual.
Oh, did you come out of the public hearing?
I did, yeah. Yeah, it was, Matthew, motion, second Marshall. Second, Miss Amanda. All right, I got a motion, Matthew to approve, second by Kevin.
Not more than we do.
Approved. All right, motion on the floor to approve, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that carries June, what did I say, August 2nd. Be there, be square. All right.
Last one in, last one out.
That's right. You had to stick around for that, huh? Hey, at least you didn't wait around for nothing.
I'm sorry. I just want to go to life. It's easy.
I'm gonna have to call this motion to let's get back in order here, throwing
Anything else we needed to tell them?
rubber bands. All right, general public comment. Anybody in the audience have anything to say off agenda items? Once, twice sold. Any commissioners have anything to say?
Yes, I will not pass this time. What I'm concerned about and confused about is this, CUP. And the fact that we're taking a very generous, kind of very unclear document and approving it, subject to hopefully stuff coming through later on, we can understand. Whereas with a subdivision development or something, we get all those details up front with a sketch plat.
Well, sketch plat doesn't have a lot of details. I mean, so this is, yes, more than this one did, which is why you had some concerns. But it's somewhat similar, but not quite up to a sketch plat is the way I'd kind of describe it. You need a little bit more just to have a feeling or an understanding that it will be a viable project and that it will not have any obvious negative impacts on the surrounding area. And you all did have some questions that needed to be filled in to bring it to that level. not quite to a sketch plat, but similar in a different
I
way.
don't think he fully understands what the concerns are, and it's hard for us to articulate because of the detail there. Now, one of the earlier ones, supposedly the design review thing has already started, right?
The application's been received, but are we talking for this one?
So what,
No,
which project are you talking
Which
about?
project are you talking about?
Project has been deferred?
No, there's another one that y'all have.
The earlier one.
No, on, the one on,
The lot split?
on Bienville. You know, yeah, no, not, that was just rezoning. The, 1808 Bienville, they've submitted for design review on that one.
That was just
For
with the
the
gravel
office.
drive, though. That's all that needed to come to you
Right,
all
that
was the
was-
gravel drive.
Exactly.
So this is really the first conditional use permit that involved new construction. And so that's why it's a little different than what you all have seen before.
So do we need to get our little heads together and come up with a way to change the ordinance or whatever it is?
Well, I think that what this showed is maybe some clarification and maybe expanding the checklist of what's needed. And it would differ from project to project, so not the things that you all asking for would not apply to a smaller project. If you had a small subdivision and a single building, there would be far less questions, because there's far less moving parts. So I think that's more what we kind of anticipated. This
Yeah, I
is
think if you have
different.
some ideas of what you would like to see, maybe more specifics, we certainly have that capacity to make this part of the application.
I just pulled the ordinance, Marshall. I do want to point out, so I would typically disagree, but I also like, trying not to legislate everything that can come up. But I mean, we got a lot of strong language in there. No inherent rights exist to receive a CUP. Such authorization must be approved under a specific set of circumstances and conditions. Each application and situation is unique. There's a lot of strong language in there that
There's strong language, and I agree, but I'm just saying, I don't think we all have a clue what this thing really is, and what
There needs to be more.
green space and all the other stuff.
And I think that that's what was revealed to this, is that you all had questions that he did not adequately address in the initial presentation.
The issue I see with it is, you're talking about 15 buildings, a massive parking lot, the drainage issue, dumping into a ditch that's gonna go run across the land trust property. And if they get wind of it, they're gonna throw a wrench in that like you wouldn't believe. I don't think it's fair to all these other apartment complexes that have had to put in retention and detention ponds. This property.
Well, and this one may still.
Yeah, he hasn't even gotten that far, at least with us, and what he submitted to us, it hasn't even gotten that far. He may.
So what happens when they, I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, the concern I have with trying to say, you gotta do this is, we could have a conditional use to allow, I'm just making something up, but a house in an RM, whatever it is. We could have a conditional use for something that's like this minutia of yeah, of course that makes sense, let's let them do it. And then we have this conditional use of, hey, we're gonna put 270 units here, which
Sounds to me like they need to rezone.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Well-
thinking.
If that's what you want to do with this property, then we need to rezone that property.
then we would
That's
just need to
got
change
spots.
orders.
That would be spot zoning.
Yeah.
And apartments are listed as a conditional use, because a CH zone property could be a small parcel, it could be a large parcel. The zoning really doesn't tell you how big the impact's going to be. So in my mind, this is probably the biggest impact that you might receive with a conditional use, because the size, the proximity to so many other things. I think that's why it's a little more convoluted than.
This one was the extreme end of-
Right. So the general things, not to get in the weeds of the calculations and the drain, size of the drain pipe, but just the question that you all had just looking at it first blush. Does it have, there's no open space shown. Are you concerned with the access and egress as far as the turning? The general things that you all brought up, if you didn't feel that they were adequately addressed in the initial, you're asking for more details so that you can have a better feeling and be able to say that it doesn't have a negative impact and that it's consistent with comp plan.
What is the next thing that comes to us, assuming we approve this thing?
Well, it depends on how the right, it shouldn't come back. What should happen ideally is we bring back those details. If you all are comfortable with it and you approve a CUP, That goes to the board, it's approved by the board. Then the design review happens in earnest. If they have to change their site plan substantially from what you all approve, that site plan would have to come back to you as an amended.
My question is, what process do we touch after this?
The planning commission doesn't. It's internal, but, right. But the engineer and everybody has to sign off of, none of that goes to the board or to the planning commission unless there is a variance or some sort of aspect.
To Kevin's point about rezoning, I mean, I like having it as a conditional use option. If we turn down, he could come back and rezone. Just because we turned down the conditional use, doesn't mean he couldn't try to rezone it and do the same use. He just can't reapply for the conditional use.
Well, why wouldn't that be spot zoning at that point?
Well, that would be the argument that you'd have then.
At the next meeting, and maybe say that is spot zoning. I mean, just, I don't know if it is or isn't, I haven't looked at it. But
Yeah,
we
what happens, while we deferred this and they put the moratorium on the apartments?
That's a real question.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
they're
that's
talking
all.
about it.
I know, but I mean, so.
It's not our problem.
I mean, it really is. All we did is kick the can down the road, basically.
Yes and no. The problem I have with the ordinance, if I wanted to change anything, I would just not make the site plan be a part of the CUP. I just take that requirement off and almost treat it like he thought, like, hey, this is just an idea, I want to put apartments here, can I do it? Yeah, that's fine, it's a great location.
And 99% of the time, the concerns that y'all brought up would not apply to anyone's requests. You know, I just compare it to the church request. They weren't making any physical changes, so there was no unknowns. In this case, he's building from scratch, so there's a lot of unknowns, and I think that you all had some valid questions. And if he answers those to your satisfaction, and, you know, so it's not so much the specific, like a sketch plat. We're not approving the fine-tuned measurements. You're looking at it saying, I'm missing some elements and I have some questions about functionality.
So basically, no matter what he comes back with, there's no reason to not approve the conditional use thing and just let the board deal with it.
Well, you have to make the finding that you feel it's consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if they come back and we, look at it and say, look, 270 new dwellings with potentially 500 more cars doing a right in, right out only, with the only U-turn being, less than a quarter mile, where they're just going to cut straight across and try to, that's a terrible place for that location.
Well, it's bad enough with the condos that are across the street already.
Right.
And all the people coming out of Popeyes and all that dance stuff and everything, zipping across to make that little U-turn.
So he may come back and
You can make
you can say, no, this is a terrible place, please.
Conversely, you have to make the finding, as it's very well laid out in the memo, and I'd go back and look at that it is consistent with the CUP and also with the comp plan. So you have to, it's not so much there's no reason to not approve it, you have to feel that it's justified for approval. And so that's kind of the stance that we look at it, is it justified for approval? That's why we give it to you, and it's a qualitative assessment.
This is not going to be a disaster. Poor traffic management is not good for the general health and welfare, or whatever the words are.
Right.
I like what you said, that we're getting jammed up because we're doing two pieces at once.
Yep.
If we could do step one, step two, I think we could have a better flow. Apartments sound good, okay. Now come back with me with the plan.
And I think we're trying to have that conversation in two parts at the same time. If everybody concurs that apartments in general are good, then is this a good place for it logistically? Or do you see any problems? So what we can do is go back and kind of summarize the areas that you all said were lacking or needed, and we'll send it back to you to say, is this what you want? Just provide feedback, and then we'll forward that to the applicant, and that's what will be brought back to you.
I think that from my perspective, the main things are some commons, green space, off of that, density, 3 stories, all the other stuff. You can say all you want, there are not going to be any kids in there, but.
I've never lived in an apartment without any kids running around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, and yeah, I don't. There's open space requirements in the ordinance now. I was looking at that site plan and I had a hard time believing it.
And we're not going to calculate it, but eyeballing it.
We could tell him to come back to y'all with those calculations. Now, how much is there?
No way there's going to be kids there.
Well, if he wants to come back and get approved, he's got to answer the questions that we
Right.
ask.
Exactly.
It's like we
And
tell
that's
we tell the applicants, it's the burden is on them to convince you that the application meets the requirements and is in the best benefit. And a CUP clearly identifies that it has to meet, it has to meet those qualitative standards. It's not just a quantifiable, it has the square footage. And
I think if you position it with them to come back and say, look, to facilitate the board making a decision and saying, go back to the drawing board, you really need to address what our concerns are, which is, green space, how to deal with the traffic out there. Should be a traffic light probably.
I would venture to guess, well, it's too close to Bechtel. There's no way they'll get a traffic light. That's part of the issue. Is you've
That
got
could work with some of the other other places on be able to line up with that.
Yeah, there's no
existing driveway.
connectivity. But I think that's the purpose of having the planning commission public hearing first, is he should have enough feedback as far as because this is the same process is going to happen with the board, and they will have the same concerns and bring the same questions. So this is, and it won't, no. So, no, it won't.
I can guarantee you that.
So it's on the applicant to bring back the information that you need, and like I said, we'll clarify a list of those areas of concern, and once you all get that, just check your email and say yes, or this was another area of concern, just so we can give him a list of things to address when he comes back
We
next
didn't
month.
bring it up with him, but I would tell him to get a letter from MDOT or a statement from MDOT, because they have access control. They may tell them, no way you're getting to, and this has to be right in, right out.
Well, he already has, the curb cuts are already there. I mean, the access is already there. It just doesn't have that level of traffic.
In there, whatever, they're gonna make them redo it.
Put bridges to Government Street.
Yeah, let him deal with CSX on that.
How can we get a railroad permit?
If he can, accomplish that with CSX, then yeah, that's a miracle. But no, there are those areas of concern, so we'll clarify that so there's no question about what he's being asked to bring back. I think that's kind of.
I think that would help the board make whatever decision they're
Right.
making.
Then the board would get what your questions, your concerns were, and how he answered them, and he would have another opportunity to present to them. But this is the largest conditional request that has come through here since I've been here. So as far as impact, just volume, just quantity.
Honestly, it looks like they're trying to cram too much on a piece of property.
And that very well may be the case. And even through design review, even if this didn't require conditional use, say it was properly zoned and it was going through design review, those things would be the same concerns that Wade had looking at this, they would have during design review, and the site plan would probably change. So the little, I'll say minor, the adjustments that may have to be made due to drainage and this and that may be considered minor changes and wouldn't necessarily come back to you. That always happens through development of a property. You get minor things during, when you look at actual measurements. But those aren't the things we're concerned about. We're concerned about the number of buildings, the amount of open space, the things that change the bones of the design. Yeah.
I had a project with 12 townhomes, and I had to have 140 feet of 36-inch RCP and a above-ground detention pond for 12 bin blocks. Wow. And this guy's got 270, and he's like, I think I can make it work. It's like, I don't know.
And we don't know that either.
That's a
Yeah, I mean,
lot of.
It's incredible.
But just
I'm sure you can find a piece of paper that says it works. I mean, you
Yeah.
found the one about the traffic study.
Yeah, process-wise, even if you did approve it, say you didn't have these concerns, you approved it, if it changed dramatically during design review, it would have to come back to you.
Okay, I move that we adjourn.
Move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second by Gracious. I'll go with Mike. All in favor?
Aye. Great job.
Thank you. Good.
Great job, planning department.
Thank you.
Down 30% staff.
All right.
Right.
Yeah.
I request
You go at least
also
once a
gravel
month,
and the variance setback, the 10 feet setback, they didn't address it.
I never go. I never. Gina goes 3 times a week.
Yeah, up on my, up on a parking space.
That was the first time I did. Only reason, was that the crawfish bowl? That's the only reason I went. It's not that I'm not against it, I just don't play tennis, and I'm not gonna go out there and sit and watch someone.
I'll compliment about that.
I mean, we'll, document.
That's what I accommodate.
We always make sure we bring neighborhood.
Didn't have enough parking space, you'll request, no 10 feet.
I want to get in. I want to.
Space.
God, I don't even know how many we can remember there.
Because you got, what, 10 feet or?
Huh?
I mean, we can be there.
And
that's good.
We can ride bikes.
It's a lot cheaper, you know.
So your side setbacks.
Well, that and
And see if I could just go all the way to
Huh?
this.
bad maintenance.
Yeah, Gina can't want to put a pool in that.
So I can accommodate the parking.
Very briefly, the kids are pretty young.
That's kind of more of a party.
It's so small.
I guess I gotta
With the
put
kids, that's gonna
a
be
slab up on it now. See, is
Well,
that
but they
gonna
got good
meet
things for kids. I don't
Imperial,
know if they
that
want to play
15,
tennis or
if I
not.
put a
but when they-
slab, and that's
you know.
why I didn't want to put a slab up in here,
to play.
because
We talked to Jane a good bit about it.
concrete slab. what
Gina's
it
brought more to
was.
go.
See, that, I want gravel, that's why I requested gravel
Right,
first.
she's real
I was gonna
good
put a
about-
slab. But then the engineer said, well, Imperial would ever say,